Loh, kan kita
Honorable distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, we cordially invite you to be joined with the mute option and no share screen because the agenda will be proceed in a few minutes. Thank you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. First of all, we would like to warmly welcome to the Honorable Mr. Bustanul Arifin as the Chairman of the Forum Masyarakat Statistik, the Honorable Mr. Imam Mahdi as the representation of Mr. Margo Yuwono, the Honorable Ms. Rika Hasan, Officer in Charge Division from ESCAP, the Honorable Speakers and Moderator, and also the distinguished participants. Before we proceed the meeting today, we would like to invite Mr. Adi from CMM to represent the interpretation channel. To Mr. Adi, the time is yours.
Thank you very much for the invitation. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Vela from CMN Translation, and I will be explaining about the future interpretation in the Zoom today. Terima kasih Bapak dan Ibu. Selamat pagi. Nama saya Vela dari CMN Translation. Saya akan menjelaskan mengenai fitur penerjemahan yang ada di Zoom yang digunakan untuk meeting pagi hari ini. Sebelum memulai, Anda diharapkan untuk mengecek terlebih dahulu Zoom Anda apakah sudah diperbaharui dari versi yang terbaru atau tidak. Untuk mengeceknya silahkan ke setting.
Dia udah ngapain dirinya sendiri.
Silahkan ke setting, lalu pilih statistik dan lihat apakah Zoom Anda sudah update atau belum. Okay, saya lanjutkan. So before we start, could you for participant kindly check your Zoom versions in the settings and then see the statistic and see if your Zoom whether it's a version or the updated one or not. Untuk mengupdate Zoom Anda, silahkan ke zoom.us/download, lalu download aplikasi dari website tersebut. If you haven't update your Zoom, kindly go to the website zoom.us/download and download from the website. and then install the apps. After the completed, you will see your Zoom is in the updated version 1. Jika Anda sudah menginstal aplikasinya, Anda akan melihat Zoom Anda akan versi terbaru yang sudah diinstal tadi. For English audience, kindly if you wish you want to hear the interpreter, you can go to the interpretation feature at the bottom of your Zoom, click the icon globe beside the reactions tombol, and then choose the English channel. Untuk pengguna bahasa Indonesia, silahkan klik feature interpreter yang ada di bawah Zoom Anda, dekat dengan tombol reactions, lalu pilih channel Indonesia. Jika Anda ingin mendengarkan full dari suara interpreter, silahkan mute original audio. If you're using smartphone, please click more and then select language interpretation and then choose your English. Jika Anda menggunakan smartphone, klik more lalu pilih language interpretation dan pilih channel yang Anda inginkan. Terima kasih, sekian dari saya. Semoga meeting ini berjalan dengan lancar. Thank you everyone. That's all from me. I hope this meeting can run smoothly. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for the CMM team. Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Fafa, who will be the MC of today's event. We would like to welcome to all of you at the Asia Pacific Regional Symposium and the 10th meeting of UN ESCAP Technical Working Group on Disaster-Related Statistics, which is held on Tuesday, 27, 2021, organized by Forum Masyarakat Statistik, Indonesian Forum of Statistical Society, and UN ESCAP Technical Working Group on Disaster-Related Statistics. In collaboration with Bappenas, the Ministry of National Development Planning, BPSRI, Central Bureau Statistik Indonesia, BNPB, the Indonesia Disaster Management Agency, and the United Nations Statistical Institute for Asia and Pacific. This meeting is National Symposium for FMS and the 10th meeting of Technical Working Group. The objective of the online regional symposium is for government officials, experts, and other stakeholders to take stock of progress, commitment, and plans on disaster-related statistics. More specifically, is the first to assess the state of disaster-related statistics in Asia and the Pacific as well as globally, and the second is to draw lessons from good practice, including the Indonesia One Disaster data, and the third is to catalyze national initiatives towards a disaster-related statistic framework. We really need taking stock from outstanding issues or challenges that will elevate to regional and global. Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, we will now begin the playing and singing the national anthem of Indonesia, Indonesia Raya. Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, before we move to the next agenda, it is good to start the meeting with a prayer conducted by Mr. Ahmad Rifai. To Mr. Ahmad Rifai, you may have the floor.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Sebelum kita memulai kegiatan acara hari ini, mari sejenak kita berdoa untuk memohon kemudahan dan kelancaran serta keberkahan selama acara berlangsung. Adapun doa akan saya pimpin menurut agama Islam. Untuk Bapak, Ibu hadirin sekalian yang bukan beragama Islam untuk dapat menyesuaikan dengan ajarannya masing-masing. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahirabbil alamin. Assalatu wassalamu ala asrafil anbiya'i wal mursalin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Asyhadu an la ilaha illallah wahdahu la syarikalah wa asyhadu anna Muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluh. Allahumma shalli ala Muhammad wa ala ali Muhammad amma ba'du. Ya Allah yang Maha Pengasih, kami panjatkan puji syukur kepadamu karena atas izin-Mu sebentar lagi kami hendak mengadakan kegiatan Asia Pasifik Regional Symposium on Disaster Related Statistics. Kami mohon kepadamu untuk memudahkan, melancarkan, dan memberkahi kegiatan kami ini. Ya Allah yang Maha Kuasa, kami mengadakan kegiatan ini tidak lain adalah bentuk ikhtiar kami untuk menjaga amanah-Mu di muka bumi ini sebagai khalifah, menjaga sumber daya alam dan segala nikmat dari-Mu yang menjadi penopang kehidupan kami. Semoga dengan ikhtiar menghadirkan statistik kebencanaan yang termutakhir, nantinya kami bisa lebih arif dan bijaksana dalam mengambil keputusan untuk kemaslahatan umat yang lebih luas. Ya Allah yang Maha Pengampun, kami memohon kepadamu untuk mengampuni dosa kami, dosa orang tua kami, dosa pemimpin kami, dan dosa para pendahulu kami. Jadikanlah kami manusia yang selalu menerima ampunan dan petunjuk-Mu. Ya Allah yang Maha Mengabulkan, kabulkanlah permohonan kami. Allahumma taqabbal minna innaka antas samiul alim. Rabbana atina fid dunya hasanah wa fil akhirati hasanah wa qina azabannar. Subhana rabbika rabbil izzati amma yasifun. Wassalamun alal mursalin walhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. Amin. Amin ya rabbal alamin. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you to Mr. Ahmad Rifai for the prayer. Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, before we going to start our first agenda, let us deliver the structure of the event today. They are the first welcoming remarks and the keynote speech, and the second is 3 main discussion session, and we'll continue with the Q&A session, and the third, there is a special segment, official launching of e-learning course on disaster-related statistic framework in Indonesia. The fourth is the break session. The fifth is concurrent session. And the last is closing. Excellencies, we would like to remind that the interpretation channel and the sign language will only provide in the first session before the break session. The first agenda for today is welcoming remarks from Mr. Bustanul Arifin is a professor of agricultural economics in the University and the Forum Masyarakat Statistik Indonesia Statistical Institute. Forum time is.
Thank you very much, Master Ceremony. Ladies and gentlemen, very good morning. How are you today? Thank you for coming to this Asia Pacific Disaster Statistic Symposium. If I may share the screen, please. Okay. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, Very good morning. My remarks today is not going to be long. DRR and DRM start from the data knowledge, disaster risk reduction, disaster reduction management, disaster risk management. What I'm going to share with you, last night, just about 8 p.m. Central Time, we have earthquake in Central Sulawesi. 6.5 Richter scale, about 60 kilometers northeast of Toja Una this side. So, but I think this is no potential, no harm for disaster or no. But I can get this video. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, Indonesia is really very prone to disaster. If you can see the data, I just downloaded from IMDAT in Belgium. You can see that the big one is 9. I just realized that all disaster has an ID, the disaster number. This is 1977 wildfire. I think that starting from Central Kalimantan, basically. Then there's earthquake. This is tsunami, the big one. Look at, see the damage. Somebody has calculated the damage, and all the things you can see. I will share the presentation later, because every day it's really an earthquake and the flood, wildfire, and everything. But today, I think this is a major disaster in the last 1.5 years or so. Is COVID-19. Ladies and gentlemen, COVID-19 is a really major disaster for humanity. Hopefully soon will end. I downloaded data last night from our world data. Look at that. In the world, this still very high, still increasing, almost in vertical line. It's very serious. This is daily confirmed case, which is okay. There's some up and down. But if you see Indonesia, we have a second wave of COVID. Second wave is really something. You can see this. We thought that we have decreased, but unfortunately, starting April or is increasing again until now. This is the data of yesterday, 26th of July. Fortunately, we have a decreased daily case number, but some critics says because we test a little, I mean smaller. Anyway, however, my field is really agricultural economics. There is a UN policy brief on COVID pandemic, which is really something, especially the impact on food security. Food security is really something in these issues. Before the pandemic, we have already a problem, threatening food security and nutrition of millions of people around the world. Hundreds of millions of people were already suffering from hunger and malnutrition before the virus. If we cannot see, if we cannot take a good action combating the prima causa of the pandemic, we could see a global food emergency. This is according to FAO, not myself. In the longer term, the combined effects of COVID itself, as well as corresponding mitigation measures and the emerging global recession could, without a large-scale continental, disrupt the functioning of food system. The food system is related to everything, okay? Ladies and gentlemen, this is the publication from UC Leuven. We should calculate economic losses. That probably, I think, our homework. So my points earlier, if we do not do, we ignore the statistical or the data knowledge of disaster, I think we will be in trouble. This is the major objective of today's symposium. Ladies and gentlemen, I quoted the major risk facing agricultural supply chains by Steve Jaffe from the World Bank. You can read it later. This is weather-related risk, natural disaster, biological environmental risk, market-related risk, logistical and infrastructure risk, management and operational risk, public policy and institutional risk, and political risk. This is also combined with disaster is really something threatening our supply chain, especially for food supply chain. We have budget, of course. This is the state budget for disaster risk reduction and management from the Indonesian government. As you can see, decreasing here. Yeah, we have to remind the government all the time, as we in Forum Masyarakat Statistik or Statistic Societal Forum have responsible for. Ladies and gentlemen, for those of you who do not know very much about FMS, we have at least 10 mandates and responsibilities, according to Minister Regulation number 6, 2007. It's been a while. Okay, what is our task, our mandate? Providing advice and recommendation to the head of BPS. Second, providing advice on type of statistics to support national development and the needs of society. Whether being asked or not, we provide recommendation, including to the Bappenas. Providing improvement of national statistic system, coordinating in improving the statistics, evaluating the quality of BPS data, providing inputs and evaluation, especially on the methodology, concept, and definition. I think you have heard we try to improve the method of poverty, poverty data and employment data. And of course, we also providing input and evaluation of the meaning and interpretation of statistics being published. Recommendation on the service of statistics and the best use of statistics for the society. And recommendation on data dissemination. And of course, we preparing reports. Ladies and gentlemen, what we mean by data quality? Data quality, we have to improve the relevance, reliability and accuracy, data standards and metadata. Of course, the data have to refer to the acknowledged or approved and internationally acknowledged methodology, and accessibility, whether the data could be easily accessible by public or not, and interoperability, interchange, data sharing, and so on. Of course, we are entering the era of big data and digital for everything. So interoperability is really important. Ladies and gentlemen, we will introduce our members. We have 25 members. This myself, Ibu Amalia is a Deputy Minister of Bappenas. Ibu Astuti Tamrin from Hasanuddin, she is a statistician. This is Vice Chairman 2. Professor Arif Ansor Yusuf from Pajajaran University from Economics Department, Vice Chairman 3. Dr. Reddy Mahmud, Deputy Chief of BPS, Balance and Analysis. Dr. Vivi Yulaswati, Senior Advisor for Bappenas. Dr. Ateng Hartono, Deputy Chief of BPS for Social Statistics. Tubagus Susni, Deputy Minister for Human Development in Ministry of Coordinating Minister of Human Development and Culture. Dr. Febrio Kacaribu, he is the DG of Fiscal Analysis. Dr. Farida Peranginangin, she is Executive Director of Statistics in Bank of Indonesia. Professor Muhammad Iksan from Economics University of Indonesia. Dr. Teguh Dartanto from Economics Department. He is now Vice Dean of Economics. Professor Derajat Irianto from Bandung Institute of Technology. He is expert in industrial engineering. Professor Nur Iriawan from ITS, he is a statistician. Professor Priyarsono from IPB, he is economics and both in statistics. Professor Dwi Andreas Santosa from IPB, he is soil scientist and land resources. Dr. Edi Purnawan from Gajah Mada University, he is an economic department. Dr. Leonard Tampu Balon, Bappenas, economic advisor, Bappenas, he is in economics as well. Dr. Asep Suryahadi, Semeru Research Institute, mostly economics and development studies. Dr. Sulaiman Sutomo from STS, Statistical Technical College Statistics. Dr. Turo Wongkaren, he is a head of Demographic Institute of University of Indonesia. Dr. Widyawan from Gajah Mada University for Big Data. Dr. Ervan Maksum, Special Advisor for Bappenas. He is responsible for Satu Data Indonesia, One Data Indonesia. Dr. Puji Pujiono, he is the man behind the gun. Then Dr. Aharjo Aswi Cahyono from CSIS. Ladies and gentlemen, we are very ambitious in trying to make a work plan and priorities. At least we have identified 16, maybe more, for the next 2 years of our working plan. We discuss agricultural statistics as the preparation of agricultural census. Disaster statistics, I think we have discussed, then that's why we come into this symposium. Thank you, Pak Puji is leading the working group. Digital transformation and big data, high frequency daily data. Sometimes I don't understand the theme because it's really based on the expertise of our colleagues in FMS. Data philanthropy. This is very challenging. And number 6, non-observable economics and finance data. Then we have to include in our calculation. And labor statistic I mentioned earlier. Database for monetary and finance. Data accessibility. Digital trade. DTKS is social welfare integrated data. The one that's been used for social program today. And then interoperability data, as we mentioned earlier. One Data Indonesia and some management, including data access and release frequency and so on. Ladies and gentlemen, how do we work? We have plenary meeting every month, full. Everybody have to attend, all 25. Of course, people may have conflicting schedule. We're making decision in this plenary meeting after the working group meeting. Working group, we discuss in detail. This is we have at least 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 working group. First, digitalization in interoperability, sectoral. Sectoral could be agriculture. I think if you remember, FMS have contributed. Of course, BPS have play important role. We strongly recommend to improve data on rice. Rice data, I think after 3 years, we successfully have come up with KSI, if you know that. Then we have social working group, balance and economics, and disaster and environment. You can check this statistical and policy brief. You can check our website, FMS Indonesia. I think we should establish Instagram maybe to improve the outreach and other activities, including today activities. Ladies and gentlemen, I will close this welcoming remarks. Please enjoy, be productive in this important symposium. I will be with you for all day. Then I think hopefully you can have benefits and learn something. You have to learn a lot from this difficult time. Thank you very much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you so much for Mr. Bustanul Arifin for the welcoming remarks. Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, the next agenda is keynote speech delivered by Mr. Margo Yuwono. In this occasion, due to the urgent matter, Mr. Margo is not able to attend this meeting. He sent his regrets and he has requested Mr. Imam Mahdi. Mr. Imam Mahdi is the Deputy for Methodology and Statistical Information from BPSRI, Central Bureau Statistik Indonesia, to deliver his speech. For Mr. Imam Mahdi, you may have the floor.
Thank you, Zenita. Can you hear my voice?
Yes, it is clear.
Okay, great. Okay, thank you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Selamat pagi, salam sejahtera, salam sehat untuk kita semua. Honorable Ms. Rike Hansen, the Officer in Charge, Statistic Division, UN ESCAP. Honorable Bapak Profesor Bustanul Arifin, the Chairman of the Indonesian Statistical Society Forum, and all fellow members. Honorable para pejabat pimpinan tinggi media, Pratama pejabat fungsional from the Ministry of the National Development Planning, PPS, Statistics Indonesia, the National Disaster Management Agency, and also other ministries and agencies. Honorable all speakers in this great symposium, distinguished representatives from ministries, agencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. This opportunity truly gives me great pleasure to represent the Chief Statistician, Bapak Margo Yuwono, in this previous event, the Asia Pacific Regional Symposium on Disaster-Related Statistics. I would like to extend his warm regards and convey his sincere apology for not being present in this symposium, since he has another agenda with the President at the same time. Also, he would like to wish you the greatest success by joining and enjoying this very beneficial symposium in order to enhance our national disaster-related statistics in Indonesia. Ladies and gentlemen, despite its fertile soil, beautiful sceneries, and richness in biodiversity, Indonesia is basically located in a disaster-prone area where the meeting point of three active tectonic plates occurs here, namely the Indonesia-Australian plate in the south, the Eurasian plate in the north, and also the Pacific plate in the east. In the last 5 years, from 2016 to 2020, there occur like approximately more than 17,000 disasters in Indonesia. Like last year, it was recorded about 2,929 natural disasters, in which floods are the most frequent disasters, is about 1,000 occurrence, followed by what we call puting beliung in Bahasa, or it is kind of a big tornado with the occurrence of 875 cases. There are landslides, 570 cases, forest and land fires, 326 cases, and other disaster, 88 cases. It's including the tidal waves and abrasion, drought, earthquake, and volcanic eruption. Due to those disasters in last year, unfortunately, 370 people lost their lives. 39 people were declared missing. Also, 536 others were injured. If you take a look at the World Risk Index in 2020, it shows that Indonesia was ranked 40th out of 180 countries in this world. And Indonesia is considered having the highest disaster risk. Regarding the exposure to nature hazard aspect, Indonesia was ranked 33rd, and its population is the most at risk for the natural disasters. It is not surprising that some people may give Indonesia an unexpected name, in quotes, disaster supermarkets, since all types of disaster occurs in Indonesia. Ladies and gentlemen, at the global level, the roadmap for disaster risk reduction has been summarized in the Sendai Framework for Disaster Risk Reduction 2015 to 2030, along with the targets and indicators. Likewise, the targets related to disaster are listed in the SDGs. At the regional level, the Asian Ministerial Conference on Disaster Risk Reduction in 2016 endorsed the commitment to significant reduction on the death toll, the number of people affected, and the damage and loss of crucial economic and infrastructure. Meanwhile, at the national level, disaster risk management is one of the national priority, and therefore it is included in our National Medium-Term Development Plan 2020 to 2024. With such a great attention given toward disaster management, the support for the provision of disaster-related statistics is urgently needed. Ladies and gentlemen, disaster-related data captures disaster events or occurrence and their impacts. The data are utilized, of course, for producing the statistics that gives beneficial to the implementation of disaster risk assessment and post-disaster impacts and its financing. In Indonesia, in our case, the disaster-related data is collected from across 37 ministries and agencies. For example, like the National Disaster Management Agency, BNPB, playing a role as the disaster data trustee, collects the data about disaster events and its impacts from various platforms, such as INARISK, INASAFE, DB, IRBI, etc. Also, the Meteorological, Climatological, and Geophysical Agency collects real-time disaster events through various sensor devices located all over Indonesia. And BPS, Statistik Indonesia, also along with the Ministry of Home Affairs, Ministry of Health, also collect data about the real condition of populations and infrastructure at the village level. In addition, other ministries and agencies collect various data. It's more like in ad hoc basis, according to their interests related to the disaster emergency response. The compilation of disaster-related statistics into centralized shared database is extremely crucial to support the needs and analysis in disaster risk reduction decision-making. In addition, the database can also provide reports on disaster-related indicators, both at the national and international levels. It is very importantly noted that the efficiency of disaster-related statistics provisions has to be balanced with the consistency requirements and other basic quality criteria of statistics. Ladies and gentlemen, since 2019, the National Disaster Management Agency, along with the BPS Statistik Indonesia, have initiated to integrate and consolidate their data into what we call one disaster-related data under the disaster-related statistical framework, which is designed by UN ESCAP. The Indonesia One Disaster-Related Data is constructed according to the data principles of the Indonesia One Data for setting up and implementing the data standard, metadata, data interoperability, and common reference codes. So based on the One Disaster-Related Data, BPS actually has developed a prototype of a dashboard that visualizes the disaster-related spatial statistics. The dashboard is designed to be the main source of the disaster-related statistics that can be accessed also by other ministries and agencies through the interoperability facilities. In order to enrich the information on the dashboard, the related ministries and agencies are urged to update the centralized shared disaster-related database. So in the future, that the database provides invaluable basis for analysis in measuring the disaster risk factors, realizing the disaster resilience through the Sendai framework and SDGs. Also, it is very important to note that we need to establish the national disaster governance through collaboration among stakeholders. In this context, BPS Statistik Indonesia will contribute to develop the statistical capacity for ministries and agencies, including how we deliver the statistical quality assurance. BPS contribution is also to produce, of course, the national disaster-related statistics. Finally, in my speech, by aiming at the same vision and determination, I am very confident that we all together are able to build the disaster resilience for the nations and to remove the term disaster supermarket. Let us make Indonesia as the disaster laboratory that provides world-class knowledge for disaster risk reductions. Thank you for all your kind attentions. I wishing you all stay safe and healthy. Thank you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you so much for Mr. Imam Mahdi for the speech. Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, the next agenda is keynote speech from Ms. Rika Hansen, Officer in Charge Statistic Division, ESCAP, and co-chair of the Interagency and Expert Group on Disaster-Related Statistics. For Ms. Rika Hansen, the time is yours.
Thank you so much. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, good morning and a warm welcome also from me to this Asia-Pacific Regional Symposium, which also serves as the 10th meeting of a regional technical working group on disaster-related statistics. I want to thank the previous two speakers, Professor Arifin and Mr. Majdi, for so excellently illustrating the importance of today's agenda and this symposium. My name is Rika Munk-Hansen and I oversee ESCAP's statistical work. And together with the United Nations Organization for Disaster Risk Reduction, I also lead the global efforts to develop disaster-related statistics. So I work, as was mentioned in the introduction, at ESCAP, which is the United Nations Regional Commission for Asia and the Pacific. And many of you in the Indonesian audience for today's symposium would know that ESCAP currently is led very competently by an Indonesian national, Ibu Amida Alistiavana. At the outset, my warm thanks to our Indonesian hosts, initiators, and co-organizers of this symposium. And those organizers are many and include the Ministry of National Development Planning, Bappenas, the National Statistical Office of Indonesia, BPS, the National Disaster Management Agency, BNPB, and the Syria Kuala University. And finally, last but not least, the Indonesian Statistical Society Forum. We just heard from the chair, and in particular, thanks to the working group on disaster and environment statistics, very ably chaired by Mr. Pudiono. So just this list of organizers is an impressive show of collaboration among multiple institutions in Indonesia to advance what is a very important and urgent agenda. And I really congratulate all the institutions in Indonesia with very successful efforts to elevate disaster data into official statistics and make it part of the national development priorities of Indonesia. My thanks also go to the leadership of the Asia-Pacific Technical Working Group on Disaster-Related Statistics and to my colleagues at ESCAP Statistical Institute, SIAP, and Statistics Division for your contributions to make this symposium happen. Now, at ESCAP, the journey to advance disaster-related statistics began actually quite a few years ago, back in 2014, and that was prompted by a series of devastating disasters which had hit all over the Asia and the Pacific region. We just got a bit of an historical overview on the disasters that have struck Indonesia, and we saw a similar pattern throughout Asia and the Pacific. And in response to that, political leaders from the region called for better evidence to help develop risk-informed policies and plans, and they looked to ESCAP to take a lead, an initiative in that direction. And since then, what has happened is that experts from across Asia and the Pacific have worked together to develop statistical guidance, the disaster-related statistics framework, which is also what Indonesia is anchoring a lot of the related efforts in. And the region has also worked together as a community to improve the disaster-related statistics following this statistical guidance. And the current efforts to do that take place in the Technical Working Group on Disaster-Related Statistics. This is a group that was formed just last year and is currently led by Mongolia, Fiji, and Indonesia. The technical working group helps and works to help countries exchange experiences, expertise to produce disaster-related statistics. The working group is action-focused, it's very pragmatic, and it aligns its technical support with national priorities and with the Sendai monitoring framework, which we have all signed up to. During this symposium, we'll be hearing more details on the work of the technical working group. And in my view, this is a very good example of how regional collaboration can support country-level based initiatives on disaster-related statistics. We'll hear from a number of countries what their experiences are and discuss what it takes to initiate disaster-related statistics in the context, in a national context. And I hope you will all be inspired by their experiences. We'll also be informed on the progress of the Indonesia One disaster data, which was just introduced by the previous speaker, and especially the recent initiative to develop a national policy on disaster-related statistics. Indonesia has taken impressive steps to implement the disaster-related statistics framework. And I believe there is a lot to learn from their experience. I trust you'll all find elements that you can pick up and replicate in your own context. So let me move from this region to the global stage. Many of you will be aware of a new global group, the Interagency and Expert Group on Disaster-Related Statistics. This is a group that operates under the Global Statistical Commission of the United Nations, and ESCAP is honored to co-lead this group together with UNDRR. The primary objective of this group is to develop a common statistical framework on disaster-related statistics that all countries in the world can use. And we've just heard how important it is to have good data on disasters. And since this is a cross-border phenomena, it is so important that we all work using the same guidance so that the resulting statistics can be compared across disasters over time between countries. Now, this global interagency and expert group has actually agreed to use the Asia-Pacific disaster-related statistics framework as the starting point for its work. And this is something we can and should be proud of in this region. My fellow co-chair of the global group, Animesh Kumar, who is heading UNDR's Bonn office, will join the symposium a bit later today and discuss further details on this global initiative. So what is this regional symposium really about? Well, in a nutshell, it is a collectively organized effort to bring different disaster-related communities closer together and reach a wider audience. And I'm very happy that we have very active participation also from academia in this symposium as a co-organizer of the event. It's a very good opportunity for all of us to meet new experts, and I encourage you all to make use of the contacts you gain and tap them when you need in future for advice, for inputs, or other types of support. So in closing, let me just add another note of thanks, and that is to the small team of enthusiastic professionals who did all the legwork to pull this symposium together. It's an immense pleasure for ESCAP and for me to continuously engage with the regional community to advance disaster-related statistics. And I can assure you that ESCAP stays committed to this agenda. I look forward to the success of the event today and to continue working with all of you in the future. So with that, I thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to welcome you all today. Thank you.
Thank you so much for Ms. Rika Hassan for the keynote speech. Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. And now moving on the next agenda that will be moderated by Mr. Puji Pujiono, the Chair Work Group on Disaster and Environment Statistics, FMS. In this session, Mr. Puji will facilitate two sessions. The first session is policy segment with 3 speakers, and the second session is special feature on Indonesia One disaster data with 2 speakers. To Mr. Puji Pujiono, you may have the floor.
Thank you, Mbak Fafa. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam.
My name is Puji Pujiono. I am the chair of the working group on disaster and environment statistics at the Indonesian Statistics Society. I'm very privileged to be the moderator for an important segment in this symposium, which is the policy segment. This is more or less an elaboration of the points that was delivered by the 3 previous speakers. It will frame the larger discussion about disaster statistics in Indonesia. And at the same time, this is also the first lecture that is delivered for the e-learning course on disaster statistics that will be launched shortly. It is quite encouraging to see almost 550 participants in this regional symposium from Indonesia and from abroad. And for that, it's very fitting that we have the prime speakers for today. We have 4 speakers from the principal agencies and ministry in Indonesia that constitute the pillars of disaster statistics. They will present the policy framework in Indonesia, and we hope that this also be informative for other countries, members of the technical working group of ESCAP, and others who are participating today. Without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, I will be inviting one by one the speakers of this segment, namely Mr. Abdul Muhari, Dr. Ateng Hartono, and then Ibu Amalia Adininggar Widyasanti, and later Bapak Richard Makaleo. Ladies and gentlemen, if you have questions, do use the Slido, which link is provided at the chat box. And if the time permits, we will review your questions and we'll post it to the speakers. Now, with your permission, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to invite our first speaker, Mr. Abdul Muhari, PhD. He is a dear friend of mine. He is also the chief of the Center of the Disaster Data, Information and Communication at the National Disaster Management Agency. And we request him to present the imperatives for a national policy on disaster-related statistics, knowing very well that disaster management and statistics are 2 separate sectors. The line ministries are operating on different legislation, and local governments and other stakeholders are operating yet on other legislation. How will a national policy pull them together? So, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to invite now Bapak Abdul Muhari, PhD, to take the floor, please, for about 12 minutes. Pak Abdul Muhari.
Thank you, Pak.
The screen is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Pak Puji. Very good morning, Excellencies, colleagues, and ladies and gentlemen. First of all, thank you for having me in representing a National Disaster Management Agency and this very important meeting, where I would like to talk about the necessity or the urgency of the one disaster data in Indonesia. can I have access for share screen, Pak Puji?
Yes, please, Pak.
The host still disabled.
Panitia, could you give access to Pak Aam, please?
Okay. So as we understand that the previous speakers already mentioned that disasters repeated, although at every case, it has its own uniqueness. But when it happens in the past, it should be repeat in the future. So in order to design the appropriate disaster preparedness and mitigation, we need to understand what happened in the past. Previous speakers already shows that, and also I would like to remind that in example, when we have the 2004 Indian Ocean tsunami, first we thought that the tsunami was the first in the history, but after we learn more about the sedimentation, the tsunami sedimentology, we understand that they already occurred in the past several times. And 2 months ago, we have a very big cyclone in the East Nusa Tenggara that led to 182 casualties. And this is also, we think this is probably the first time, because we understand that East Nusa Tenggara is dry area. Very rare we heard that East Nusa Tenggara attacked or impacted by the flood or flash flood. But after we see the history of the tropical cyclone in the East Indonesia, we understand that in 1973, there's a big cyclone in East Nusa Tenggara that brought 1,573 casualties at that time in 1973. So if a disaster happened and we would like to learn more about that, so we need to see what happened in the past in the related area. So this is the necessity, the important, the crucial thing about having the data of the disaster, because in order to design appropriate preparedness and mitigation, we need to really understand what happened in the past. So BNPB has several rules according to the implementation of the national law of the disaster management, providing guidance and direction, establishing standardization, and conveying information of disaster management activities, accounting receiving state budget, and so on. And this is the three part that related to the topic we discussed this morning. First, formulation and determination, the rule or the norm and the standard, as well as the licensing requirement and procedures, recommendation for the implementation of disaster management, formulation and determination of new policies and handling refugees in fast, appropriate, and effective and efficient manner, and coordinating the implementation of disaster management activities in a planned, integrated manner. So here, particularly in the second and the third point, of course, the existence or the importance of the disaster data is crucial, because in order to design evidence-based policy, we need to understand the data, we need to have the data. So this is the urgency that BNPB think that one disaster data in Indonesia, it needs to be conducted. Related with the 7 target of the Global Standard Framework for Disaster Risk Reduction, several points we need to reduce. First, the life loss due to disasters and the amount of impacted population due to disasters, economic loss, and infrastructure damage. And in this sense, of course, again, we need to collect, we need to manage the appropriate data in order to see the impact or the input of disaster management effort that we conducted in order to achieve this 7 target, the Global Standard Framework of Disaster Risk Reduction. However, some challenge that daily we understand in this context usually avoiding us or accelerating us to achieve the ultimate goal of this one disaster data. First, the data is widely varies and is not integrated in one system. And the second, the standardization. Each ministry, each agencies has its own standard. And when we discuss the integration of the data, then we need to do the synchronization and the synergize to really match one produced by another institution to the data produced by another institution. So this leads to the third point, that we need to improve the coordination between agencies. So this is the 3 problems and the thing that we need to face in order to really move with the one disaster data. Related with this synergize and the synchronization of the data produced by one institution with the another data that produced by another institution, we already have the Presidential Act number 39, 2019 about the Indonesian One Map policy, which the host of each data ruled by or implemented by the regulation of the head of Indonesian Geospatial Agency number 27, 2019, where the BNPB, National Disaster Management Agency, is the downstream agency. So we are not in the upstream, we are in the downstream. So we need to accept, or we need to adjust, or we need to adopt the information that produced by the upstream agencies and trying to use it as the input. So the information coming from the upstream agencies is the data for us in the downstream agency. So in this sense, of course, we need to have mutual understanding. In example, what BNPB need as the input is certain data like this, this, and this. And this should be communicated with the upstream agency, where probably it is not the exact or the annual data that they produce. So we need to really have mutual understanding in order to have the appropriate data input and standardization from the upstream agencies to the downstream agency. This is still the thing that we need to improve currently. So here basic data needs baseline is a basic map acquisition and dissemination, timely fashion of the acquisition and dissemination of disaster data, and the standard of disaster data input output, garbage in, garbage out. So we need to really discuss the national standard of disaster data and disaster analysis. In example, when we try to produce the national disaster risk map, so the National Disaster Management Agency need the input data from the upstream agencies, and this upstream agency has its own national standard. So this national standard should be adopted, should be adjusted with the needs of the downstream agency. And the fourth point is in data access, disaster data sharing. What is the policy in order to keep the data is not truly open source? It still should be the restriction of the data sharing, but it should meet the needs and the criteria of this agency who will produce, who will analyze this data for further implementation or for further policy making. So these rules, tasks, and function of the agency related with disaster data should be synergized. This is the overview of the One Data policy in Indonesia. I believe you already see this elsewhere. According to the Presidential Law number 39, 2019, data standards, metadata, it's the operability of the system. So the platform used by the institution should match or should sync or should match with the other platform that used by the other agencies. And we should try to establish the reference code of the data in order to really put one thing, one information for one event. So this is the One Data principle. Generated producers should meet the data standard for those who need for further analysis, for further policy decision making, for further implementation in the actual condition. Data submitted by data procedures should have the metadata. Generated by data procedures should have the interoperability rules and the reference code. The initiative of Indonesian disaster data so far, this is the few principles: providing context to a better understanding, improving useful confirmation disasters, and better disaster data also expected to have participants of all parties as resources in addressing disaster risk as a whole. And data statistic, we need to precise, accurate, strengthen the rule of official statistics to provide relevant key data with all stages of disasters, and preparation of satu data bencana Indonesia, one disaster data Indonesia, should meet the rule of the One Map policy as it already enacted in the Presidential Law number 39, 2019. This is the scheme of the Forum Data Bencana Nasional Indonesia. And of course, we need to encourage all stakeholders related to disaster management to really use the opportunity to contribute in providing the data. And of course, we need to establish the standard of data input, so these parties who would like to contribute can understand what data, what kind of data they can contribute, and what kind of standard they should meet before they're intended to contribute. This is the steps: identification of basic and disaster data availability, pre-disaster data, during disaster data, and post-disaster data. Of course, if we already have system for this, we expected that the implementation of these cycles related with the evidence base and the scientific base policy making could have been established better. some potential administrative data and the supporting data from BPS, and the standard set statistical metadata, default location, and data update. So Pak Puji, as a conclusion, one, disaster data is needed to build long-term planning in the field of disasters that are effective and efficient. Synergy of the various agencies is crucial. This is still the problem that we need to continuously make or improve between agencies. And disaster data need to be adjusted to the need of each according to the local characteristic and focus on disaster that physical in nature. So disaster evolve. Even we have disaster at the same place, but different event brought different characteristics. And the response of the community also different one disaster to another disaster. Utilization of the service conducted by agencies to complete disaster data needs. And we, of course, I think one of the summary of this discussion we have today also to develop the roadmap of disaster statistics together with BPS and the other stakeholders. By that conclusion, Pak Uji and ladies and gentlemen, I close my talk. Thank you.
Thank you, Pak Am. That was indeed very comprehensive presentation from BNPB. And surely it considered the basis for disaster-related statistics from here onward. Please hold on your seat, Pak Am, for there might be some questions directed to you later. Ladies and gentlemen, this demonstrates to you that disaster statistics requires very, very close cooperation and collaboration between the statistics community and disaster management community. Now we have presented to you one leg of that, which is the disaster management. Now I would like to invite Dr. Ateng Hartono, the other leg of disaster statistics, if you like, to present to us. He is the Deputy for Social Resilience Statistic at the Indonesia Statistics. And Pak Ateng has been the custodian of this initiative on the side of BPS. Now we would like to request Pak Ateng to share with us what's his perspective with regard to data ecosystem when it comes to disaster statistics. May we have Pak Ateng, please?
Okay, thank you so much.
You have a little bit of echo over there, Pak Ateng. Are you all right?
Sorry. Di ini teman-teman matikan. Okay, please.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much, Pak Puji Pujiono, the Honorable Bu Winnie, Bu Amalia, Mr. Abdul Muhari, Pak Abdul, and Mr. Richard, and ladies and gentlemen, participants of the design.
I think we lost your voice, Pak.
Pak Puji.
Yes, now it's on.
Yes. Okay, thank you. Thank you so much, Pak Puji Pujiono, the Honorable Pak Bu Winnie, Bu Amalia, Mr. Abdul Muhari, Mr. Richard Makelo, ladies and gentlemen, participant of the Disaster Statistic Symposium. Assalamualaikum, hello and good morning. The subject of my presentation is the data ecosystem required to integrate disaster data into a national statistical system. I will present the following discussion. First, what are the challenges and opportunities in the preparation on disaster statistics, national and international? Second, what has been done or achieved and future directions? And the third, how to actualize one disaster data or Satu Data Bencana Indonesia (SDBI). And finally, an example of a product production by the BPS team relating to disaster risk data in given. This next slide. In the preparation of disaster statistic, there are challenges both nationally and internationally. At the national level, there are a variety of issues to consider. First, disaster data is fragmented, too many data and too little information. Indonesian face difficulty in gathering disaster statistic due to varying geographical condition and each province. Observing the condition, there is a lot of data related to potential disaster that are scattered in regency or city and province in Indonesia, but have not been integrated, which makes very little information available. The second national challenges is credibility and reliability gaps. Data is often less reliable and often inconsistent, and due to the variety of sources of information connected to disaster statistic, data or indicator are difficult to compare throughout time due to variance in geographic area that result in different types of the data being collected. And the third national challenges is disaster data is short-lived. Data on disaster risk is still not being collected on regular basis. As soon as a disaster strike, a new disaster data is reported. For instance, how many victims are youngsters, the elderly, and other when a new calamity is reported on recorded. This makes catastrophe management and disaster victim mitigation extremely difficult to plan for. And the end national challenges is a system are disconnected. The lack of an integrated system that collects disaster statistic data from diverse sources is also significant because there is no one data system. Each sector or institutional has its own set of data. This, of course, makes putting together a swift and integrated disaster management strategy challenging. International challenge. First, scattered framework or no similar framework. The disaster statistics scheme of framework that have not been integrated or are still scattered in multiple agreements such as the Sendai framework, Paris Agreement, and SDGs are still global in origin, making standardization difficult to do. And the second international challenges is a lack of standard, no defined definition and classification method and procedure. There are still gaps in the statistical framework for disaster, as well as a definition of disaster variable and the sort of the data required. The usefulness of international definition is the preparation of the disaster data is extremely important when comparing area and country. Third, no model and benchmark. No other developing countries has comparable good practice. Developing countries still have difficulty in compiling disaster statistics due to absence of model or benchmarks. Initiative for making disaster statistics are carried out by the statistical institution and also institutions that handle disaster in their countries. BPS building a disaster statistic information system start with current data. Data is collected from the result of the population census, village potential statistic, and the other related data. Next slides. Ladies and gentlemen, the first national opportunity. First, robust disaster database. Working link with sectoral ministries and agencies as well as local government has been established. The plan to compile disaster statistic data has been in the work for some times, and it has the endorsements of the relevant agency. Since the beginning 2019, several internal minister or institutional initiatives have been developed, including BPS or Statistik Indonesia and BNPB or National Agency for Catastrophe Management collaborate to create a framework that aligns the two national agency disaster data and statistic mandate and objective, and the two policy and regulatory framework development and agreement to create a national disaster data forum. The second national opportunities is statistical precedent. The selection of BPS Quick Win in 2021 reflects the importance of BPS in producing disaster statistics. Following up on these fast victories, a team was formed to compile a disaster statistic database. The activity began in 2021 with creating of the teamwork framework and the collection of internal BPS data on disaster statistics. Third, data integrated policy. The president support was welcomed by the team by compiling the implementation of one disaster data, not only compiling table but also based on geospatial statistic. And fourth, establish sectoral procedure. Disaster management agency has extensive and elaborate database and inter-agency procedure for Sendai and SDGs. And excellent international opportunity. There are last three changes in the international environment to assist in the production of the disaster data, namely Sendai requirement, SDGs, UN ESCAP, and framework for the development of environmental statistics or FDIS. We are continuing to create one Indonesia disaster data on Satu Data Indonesia or SDBI by assessing obstacle and seeing opportunities at both the national and the international level. Ladies and gentlemen, current progress. Their major activity have been carried out and the legal basis support the preparation of disaster statistic, namely. Next, current progress. First, the one disaster data as a national or SDBI framework was launched in 2019. Government has accorded its strategy and priority is investment to the integrated disaster data system in 25-year master plan or rencana induk 25 tahun and 5-year medium term plan or rencana induk jangka menengah in Indonesian and 2021 work plan or rencana kerja. Our initial step, especially for the 2021 plan, is to establish a small team to assist in the development and implementation of one Indonesia disaster data, SDBI. The next step, the team compiled various data related on the disaster statistics sourced from BPS internal data. To support the smooth running of the work, we create a division of labor metric. After the data is collected, the team also create an integrated application system in the form of a disaster statistic dashboard. Second, in build the disaster statistic is strengthened by a legal basis include legal basis is disaster management law, Acts, local government law, national planning law, SDGs policies, and one data policies and draft net policies. Third, disaster statistics are also one of the national priority, at least for national priority related to the preparation of disaster statistics, namely. The first is, sorry. National currents, okay. In disaster management master plan 2020 and 24. National priority in the second in disaster management national action plan 2020 and 24. And in the national medium term development plan planning 2020 and 24, and the end in government work plan and 2021. Yes. Next slide. Ladies and gentlemen, SDBI covered on basic rank consists of 4 main components. It can be seen from the diagram on the left. Yes, namely the first, data related on the disaster risk. Data related to disaster risk include data on threats, disaster hazard, vulnerability, exposure, capabilities related to resilience in the face of possible catastrophe occurrence. The data is mapping use BPS or the data source, such as grouping by province and district city from the population census 2020, data from village potential as well as other on the detection of load and infrastructure incident. Disaster occurrence, data of unique identified occurrence, the feature of the event, the kind of occurrence, the location and time of specific of the disaster start and conclusion, and the disaster status are all listed in the accordance to define and classification. Data on the effect of disaster and disaster impacts and disaster expenditure. And in table below, disaster expenditure in short, ideally the national balance sheets that include information, funding and investment to development, research and development in the area of prevention, risk reduction, mitigation, preparation, disaster response and recovery. This contain information about international cooperative transfer. Several supporting linked data sources are primarily gathering in 4 data category according their sort of the achieve the completion of the data mapping can be seen on the right slide. Namely, the first basic statistic. A basic statistic derived from the population census, village potential, agricultural census, national social economic survey, and the other data source. We gathered certain disaster-related data and organized into the static on geospatial basis static data. The information is subsequent enter into the one disaster static data dashboard and disaster registry, which is most based of disaster registration data from minister agency and data from certain sector and local. And finally, big data. Big data provide data that about useful today and the future. Big data enormous growth in terms of volume, velocity, variety, value, and veracity. Needs more effort to filter and collect disaster-related data from big data. Next, the slide and future directions. The foundation approach that we are taking order to achieve the goal of establishing satu data statistik bencana Indonesia or One Data Indonesia Statistic Center is strong developing system, technical work, and maintaining international standard or international rule. The first, establish a system. We plan what will be done in the future by referring to the progress that has been achieved. The SDBI system is made up of 4 components that work together to support and enhance each other. First, disaster management agency. As the national disaster data custodian and the data procedure, the BNPB has a responsibility to play as the national disaster data keeper and procedure, formalizing and management of disaster management policies and as well as disaster management implementation coordination. Second, the National Statistical Office, or in ISO or BPS, serve statistical oversight, data compilers, and fundamental data providers. The BPS team has enhanced the following area now and the future. Population data mapping by village, using codes to map rated infrastructure, physical building, geotagging, identifying disaster related on the other sort of big data, strengthening One Indonesia Disaster Statistic Data Dashboard. Third, as data producer, improve contact with a sectoral ministry, agency, and local government. We will, for example, continue to interact with the Geographical Information Agency, or BIG, which responsible for formulating and regulating technical regulation, creating plan and program and arrangement fundamental geospatial data. And fourth, the Disaster and Environmental Statistics Working Group. As a member of National Statistics Strategy Forum, or FMS. This is a national statistical system advisor organization. FMS play a critical role in providing valuable feedback on idea development, as well as coverage and technicality and generating disaster statistic. Technical work. Technical work is needed in order to meet international standard or regulation pertaining to the disaster statistic module. Furthermore, integrated in the construct system, standardization data gathering and analysis and refresh knowledge through training. Among other things, strengthening disaster data standard relative to definition of disaster, classification, threshold value, formula, computation, and reference and metadata. The data standard and integration are strengthened by the mechanism for collecting, processing, and analyzing data as outlined in the Indonesian Disaster Statistic One Data Portal. We would like to express our gratitude to ESCAP or SIAP for provide a learning course that enable to team to continue forward with development the SDBI. Thank you for ESCAP and SIAP. And ladies and gentlemen, an international role. Building disaster statistic at the national level must also strengthen it at the international level, both in the UNESCO Forum, the Global Working Group, ASEAN, and the Global Platform on Disaster Risk Reduction. What is the required to ensure the successful performance of the above mentioned activity? We need what with standard to strengthen the SDBI definition, classification, and formula. We need improving the internationally recognized categories of the disaster risk. We must improve reinvigorated global identification, for example, by establishing a global system for assigning unique identifying to disaster incidents. as well as related thresholds. We need benchmark and technical collaboration, international cooperation is required to exchange best practice and the technical capabilities, as well as to provide support for current project. The following talk with practical activity. First, BNPB, BPS join integrated working group with UNFPA and the other. Second, Bappenas, pilot implementation in Jogja province 2021, 5 other it's 2024 and 2017. Third, BNPB SIAP Siaga pilot application in Bali province. And fourth, UNFPA BNPB BPS development of national policy on one disaster data and actualize one disaster data. There are three primarily objectives in implementation SDBI present in the diagram in the middle, namely, first, Indonesia One Data Dashboard for Disaster. Second, National Data Forum Disaster. And the third, the difficulty associated with the availability on disaster statistic data in management of the national social economic balance. This is part of the future visions as integrated social infrastructure and economics data as well as geographical data. To accomplish the three objectives, coordination and communication between many relevant ministers and institutions beginning at the national level are required. To achieve this, it is necessary to strengthen coordination and communication between BPS as NSO, BNPB as Wali Data, or Data Guardian, Bappenas, BIG, Kominfo, and the other ministers. In addition, it also guides by international standard and reference related to disaster statistics. Finally, an example of a production by the BPS team relating to disaster data given. Next, product from team BPS, mapping product from team BPS. Mana ya? Okay. For example, disaster rated map percentage of village experiencing flood for 3 consecutive year by province. Next, the products for team BPS. Okay. Percentage of village experiencing flood for 3 consecutive years and child and elderly population 2020 by a province. Can see the mapping in my products and percentage of village experiencing earthquake the 3 consecutive by province. And next products we have will is percentage of lyric, and that's okay. Thank you for your attention. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Pak Ateng, thank you very much for that extensive presentation. It could be overwhelming. It's a lot of information, but it's nevertheless very important. Now, another important pillar and feature of disaster-related statistics is the role of the National Planning Agency or Ministry.
Latihan kok banyak lepas banget ya.
Thank you. Am I connected now? So, Pak Ateng, thank you very much for that presentation. Let me now, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, I would like to invite Ibu Amalia Adininggar Widyasanti, or we dearly call her Ibu Winnie. And thank you, Ibu, for being very generous with your time in this important symposium. as I said earlier, the national development at the end of the day is the avenue for the convergence of all of this data and how it's being used. Many of us come up with the assumption, Ibu, that disaster actually change the posture of development. But we really don't know to what extent it does, right? And therefore, we also have a hard time to determine how much investment needed for to mitigate disasters and what the result. On that regard, Ibu, if you wish, please share with us your thoughts on how disaster actually make or break SDGs. Ibu, over to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Pak Puji, for a very kind remark before this. And I think this is a very important opportunity for us to share with you all in this important event that what actually the important roles of disaster management and also disaster statistics in related to sustainable development goals in Indonesia. So let me share my screen to share with you all. Is that now shown up on the screen, Pak Puji? Can you see?
It will have to take 1 second or two, but it's on the way.
Is it on now?
I think it's like a big circle through Los Angeles or somewhere. It takes some time. But go ahead. I think the organizing committee is fixing it. But it's on the way. Yes, it does now. Please,
is it properly?
It is full screen now.
All right. Thank you, Pak Puji. And then I would like to start with the background of, I just would like to echo what have been discussed by previous speakers, the importance of disaster statistics, that there is no doubt disaster statistics is very much important because we all know that data is fundamental to manage and mitigate the disaster risk. And also the disaster statistics can provide information on pre-disaster condition, emergency response, as well as post-disaster condition. So with that, statistics on disaster can be classified into strategy mapping. And also, it is also very important for disaster risk management. As you know that this is just would like to emphasize again, disaster risk management is actually divided into two groups, stable and risky conditions. When there is a stable conditions, then disaster statistics is very valuable to monitor the maintenance and also such as investment on disaster risk reduction. On the risky condition, then disaster statistic will be very important to monitor the monitor of the rehabilitation process and reconstruction process. And during this disaster, for sure, disaster statistic will be very important to provide an accurate information on emergency response and recovery. And therefore, there is no doubt that we have, especially Indonesia, is very much need to build and establish comprehensive disaster statistics. So as we know that Indonesia is prone to disaster, according to the World Risk Report launched by the Institute of International Law of Peace and Armed Conflict in 2020, the data shows that Indonesia is actually on the 40th country that is highly risk to disaster. And in Asia region, Indonesia is actually on the 4th position, which is very risky to disaster after Brunei Darussalam, Cambodia, Timor-Leste. So the 4th one is Indonesia with the index of 10.39. So I think with this condition, Indonesia need to have a very comprehensive statistic data on disasters. And also we need to have a good and very well preparedness to improve the disaster resilience in Indonesia. According to BNPB, the National Disaster Management Agency, as of 20 July 2021, it is recorded that there have been 1,584 natural disasters in Indonesia, with about 500 people killed and 5.6 million people have to be migrated to the other places. And after COVID-19 pandemic, of course, the disaster risk will be higher and higher in the future. This is actually linked to the climate change that we are now facing. As you know, that climate change can lead to environmental degradation and can increase global disaster risk in the future as well, such as zoonosis. That probably that COVID-19 also a kind of zoonosis pandemic, and also flooding and other new diseases that may become in the future because of climate change. So climate change have to be mitigated because climate change can lead to a disaster, whether it is a natural disaster or non-natural disaster, such as diseases in the future. So therefore, we need to mitigate the impact of climate change because, as you know, that the impact of climate change that is now being faced by us is actually the increase in temperature, increased sea level, increased rainfall, extreme wave and tide, and also an increase of global temperature now have been actually the cause of global warming. And then scientists also already measured that global warming now is actually around 1.5 degrees Celsius increase in our global temperature. And this is at this important opportunity, we also would like to share with you all the simulation that have been done by my unit. And then this simulation is actually a kind of economic impact of flood in South Kalimantan that just recently happened. Flooding in South Kalimantan, according to our exercises, has impacted on slowing down of national GDP growth by 0.01%, and also it can slow down as well the GDP growth of South Kalimantan by 0.6% from the baseline. So I think a flood or a kind of disaster is not only impacted to the social and also the lives of the people, but also it can create a negative impact to our economy as well. For example, the sector that is impacted a lot by flood in South Kalimantan, according to our exercises, is mining, that can reduce the output by 0.03%, rubber and its product, food, sea transportation, and also wood products. With that, because of the decrease in output, then there is also the possibility of employment loss in South Kalimantan because of the flood. Then it can reduce the employment on the sector of plastic and rubber product, mining, food, wood product, and also metal product. A further simulation that has been done by my unit, because you know that flooding in South Kalimantan has affected 10 out of 13 districts in South Kalimantan in early 2021. And according to BPPT, there were 6 sectors already impacted. And then we match it with a simulation undertaken by Bappenas using the ERIO data 2016, the recent one. And this is actually the result of our simulation. And there is, of course, in these sectors, and this is actually the primary sectors that is supporting the South Kalimantan economy, and the flood can reduce actually the output of these sectors, and of course it will impact to the GRDP of South Kalimantan at the end of the day. So with that, I would like to say and also to underline what have been mentioned by Pak Ateng, that this year, Bappenas is now working on a pilot project to identify statistical data disasters in 5 provinces, actually, not only Jogja. Those are Aceh, West Sumatra, South Kalimantan, Central Sulawesi, and NTB. And we already completed the work on the 3 provinces, which is Central Sulawesi, South Kalimantan, and also West Sumatra. So what is the situation in the field that actually we are facing with some issues? The first one, data forum, is not really working well at full capacity as we are expecting, especially when we are trying to synchronize the existing provincial data, particularly because the regulation, governor regulation, Satu Data does not exist in West Sumatra, for example. And also some provinces do not have data portal, including in Central Sulawesi and West Sumatra, which hinders sectoral data collection effort is really quite hard. And especially when we are trying to collect the data on disasters, then there is a lot of challenges on this one. The third one is overlap in functions and role between Bapeda and Dinas Kominfo, and the Dinas who is responsible for information technology regarding to sectoral data in West Sumatra. I think this is the overlap in responsibilities, who is doing what. I think it has to be clear by the governor or by the leader in that West Sumatra. The fourth one, disaster data published by several institutions different from each other and does not really in line very well. This indicates that there is a differences in definition on disaster concept. So obstacles, actually the obstacles are Sumatra Barat has not issued per group to follow up Perpres Satu Data, and Wali Data is not work very well as well at full capacity, especially for coordination, integration, and synchronization of activities related to data collection in Central Sulawesi, South Kalimantan, and West Sumatra. Wali Data has not played an active role in providing data that belongs to the authority of provinces and districts, as well as consulted with data coordinator. And some unit in regional level neglect their duties to produce sectoral data, and also many data sets are not updated regularly. So this is the findings from our pilot projects. I think there have to be improvement, as we know that collecting disaster statistics is very much important. And based on the pilot project that have been undertaken, I think we have a lot of lessons learned that have to be improved. And I think for this improvement, we need a strong collaboration, not only BPS, not only regional level, but every stakeholders need to work hand in hand to improve the availability and to improve the capacity of regional level, in especially to collect the disaster statistics and data. So for your information, there is a mandate in medium-term development planning document of 2020 to 2024 that actually disaster resilience is actually one of our development agenda. There is like 7 development agenda of Indonesia for these 5 years. And then with that, environmental development, stronger disaster resilience, and climate change are actually really explicitly stated in our medium-term development planning document. And this is showing to all of us that how important is actually disaster resilience for Indonesia, especially for the future and a better resilient Indonesia in the future. And for the period of 2020 to 2024, as you know, environmental development, stronger disaster resiliency, and climate change are directed through higher quality improvement. And also what I would like to underline is stronger disaster resilience and climate change will be one of the, is actually one of our priority during this 5-year period. And COVID-19 and natural disaster that occurred simultaneously gave a very valuable lesson for Indonesia. The first one is actually disaster, and also whether it is a natural disaster or non-natural disaster, it can create a shock to our economy. And this meaning that disaster and economy is very much related one to another. So in that regard, an important lesson as well that we'll take from this COVID-19 pandemic is that Indonesia need also to improve disaster resilience, not only for natural disaster, but also we have to improve our resiliency to improve, to face the non-natural disaster such as COVID-19 pandemic. Actually, with that lessons, we now we actually now really take a lesson from this COVID-19 pandemic that started from 2021 to 2022. Indonesia really emphasized on the importance of non-natural disaster resilience in Indonesia. And also, at the same time, we also really need to improve the health system, which is severely now prone to the disease pandemic and disease outbreak, like what we are now facing. And also, at the same time, we also emphasize the importance of social protection system that needs to be reformed so it will be able to really help to face the situation and the pandemic and the disaster that we are now facing. So in that regard, in 2021, started in 2021, the theme of our government work plan in 2021, not only to improve economic recovery, but also we need to improve we call it the social reform, and then we continue it in 2022 national work plan that we really again emphasize the importance of structural reform. And one of the structural reform that we have to do is actually to improve the disaster system resilience for Indonesia. So we can learn from other countries in disaster management, such as from Japan. Japan is one of the countries. Actually, we know that Japan is very prone to disaster and has been successful in mitigating and managing the disaster risk. What Japan has done is Japan has developed disaster management plans, which consist of preparedness, such as planning, investment, and risk education, early warning and responses, and this covers evacuation support, emergency rescue activities, and also early warning system. And also it includes recovery and reconstruction process to be able to provide a smooth recovery and a speed construction. So with that, this document also explains the roles of each public stakeholders, such as the role of each ministry at national and local level, as well as the collaboration mechanism and collaboration list between private, public, and also including the society stakeholders. The second one is that also Japan has fire and disaster management agency to always keep informed the ongoing disaster to public. So one of the, besides that, I would like also to share with you regarding to SDGs. SDGs is also one of the instruments to improve our disaster resilience and disaster statistics. Well, for your information, Indonesia really committed to implement and achieve the SDGs, including the all 17 goals. And as you know, that if you map between our medium-term development plan, which is, we call it the 7 development agenda, and we map it into the goals in sustainable development goals, then agenda number 7, which is environmental and disaster resilience, is actually very much in line with SDGs goal number 11, 12, 13, 14, and 15. And Indonesia committed to mainstream and align all the SDGs goal into our development agenda. And this is the achievement of the 7 development agenda, especially for environmental and disaster resilience. And our strategy, of course, that Indonesia would like to build back better toward more resilient development. So when we are hit by the disaster, then we don't want to reconstruct and rehabilitate as a business as usual, but we have to adopt the build back better concept, where Build Back Better aims to avoid being exposed to the initial vulnerability and makes the recovery process as a transformation towards a better way to include social, economic, and environmental transformation and reform. So in concluding, I would like to say that it is very necessary Indonesia to put forward the important strategies for disaster statistics and resilience. The first one, government Indonesia needs to devise long-term plans to mitigate disaster risk in Indonesia, including to really emphasize the importance of disaster statistics. The second one, central and local government have to work together hand in hand to provide an accurate and independent data on disaster. The third, local forums on data provision should play an active role in providing sectoral data, particularly data on disasters, which is aligned with our government regulation on One Data Indonesia, or we call it Satu Data Indonesia. And the last one, what I would like to say here is that clear concept and definition on disaster statistics will be very much important to put everyone on the same page. I will stop there and thank you very much, everyone, for your attention. Thank you.
Thank you, Ibu Winnie. Much appreciated. It is not every day that we have a deep analysis of disaster statistics by a Deputy of Economic Affairs of the Ministry of National Planning. This is really a heavy-duty message of how disaster is so intricate, inseparable from SDGs. I think the message was loud and clear, and I think this is invitation as well as challenge for all of us. Ibu Winnie, thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, time is running. I would like to now invite Mr. Richard Makaleu. Richard is a program specialist at UNFPA. UNFPA has been together with the Indonesian Statistik and National Disaster Management Agency to establish the Satu Data Bencana Indonesia. And we requested Richard to share with us his perspective on how disaster statistics link with humanitarian affairs, both in Indonesia and elsewhere. Richard.
Thank you.
Richard? Yes? Okay.
Thank you, Pak Puji. I just wondering why I cannot switch on my video here.
Could the organizing committee allow Pak Richard to switch on the video, please? Maybe there's some. Yeah.
Oh, yes.
You're on now.
Thank you, Pak Puji, for this opportunity. I'm honored to be invited here by the organizers to share our experience as one of the Indonesia developing partners and working in the area of humanitarian response. So my presentation would be based entirely from our experience working with the Indonesian partners, especially the National Disaster Management Agency and BPS Statistics in the area of humanitarian response, especially on the disaster-related data. Yes, I would appreciate it if somebody can share my presentation slides. I've been requested by Pak Puji, by the organizer, to talk about statistics as a game changer in humanitarian response. But this is mainly based on our experience, you know, a real experience working in Indonesia in this particular area. Next. I like to divide my presentation into three parts. One is on the humanitarian response, progress, achievements, and challenges, the need of data. And the second part is data preparedness as a pillar in emergency response. And the last part is actually I like to share UNEP's support to the Indonesia One disaster data. As we are talking the same issue, a common issue on the disaster-related data, it cannot be avoided that you know, the previous speakers have mentioned some of the points that I'm going to present. My apology for that. Perhaps I will just skip that issue because it has been mentioned earlier. Next. The baseline data producers. Maybe you already know. Then based on the earlier presentations, some of the institutions here have also presented and provided information about the data that they produced, like the BPS Statistics, one of the main official data producers in Indonesia. We can identify here that they produce population censuses. The current one is 2020, but the previous one, you know, and every 10 years they have population censuses. For the 2020 population census, they have two stages. One is the full enumeration conducted in 2020. They call it 2020 population census short form. They were about to conduct actually the second stage of the census in Indonesia, scheduled in September for the 2020 population census long form or full form. But I've heard the information, latest information, it is likely to be you know, postponed. We have also, you know, from the BPS Statistics, the village potency data and other national surveys. The other source of baseline data is actually produced by the Ministry of Home Affairs through the Population and Civil Registration Office, which provide very useful data on the civil registration and vital statistics. And also the third player on the data producer here is actually Geospatial Information Agency, or BIG. You know, maybe you already know about this, and this has provided us the very useful you know, data and mappings. Next. Just want to show you, based on our experience, what would be the, what you call the use of the baseline data. First is during the pre-disaster, we could use the baseline data for disaster risk assessment. Trying to identify or to map the areas with the level of hazards and etc. Additionally, we also you can use the baseline for estimating the population and vulnerable groups exposed to the disaster. This is especially if we have the disaster, and using the baseline, we should be able to estimate the vulnerable groups, if the data is available. The third one is the use of baseline data is to do the disaster impact analysis. This is also done once the disaster has occurred. Then we could use this baseline data to I'm sorry, I lost my connection. Am I back again?
Yes, you are, Pak Richard.
Oh, yes. Can I have my presentation again? Yes, use of humanitarian response programs development. This is the illustration of what we can use, of the baseline data. We use the mapping here and trying to, identify here the hazards maps here, and also the infographics, infographic on the basis of the data. Next. Challenges. Perhaps it's been also identified by the previous speakers on the challenges that we face when it comes to the disaster-related data. One is a lack of disaggregated data. Many of the information, it is in the form of a bulk data or a compiled, non-disaggregated data. So it is very difficult actually to identify specific needs and response. The second challenge is a lack of consensus and harmonized identification of common response. This is particularly true if all of the players and stakeholders are trying to address their own program during the disaster. So we are having difficulties, in this situation because of the lack of consensus on the harmonized common response. And the third one is we have a lot of data. There are many data, especially during the disaster, and including information, but very few are reliable. Many of them cannot be used to estimate the indicators because they are not up to the standard and lack of metadata. This has been also mentioned by other speakers that in order to have a quality data, then we have to have the standards and also metadata. Next. Some of the data that are available, existing data that are available that UNFPA and have been using together with the partners are actually the population projections, for instance. Population projection is available up to the district levels. This is a very useful data that can be used, especially if we want to know the estimated population in one particular area, at the current time, because as we know that the population projection is actually based on it's been developed based on the population censuses and intercensual population surveys. But because the two data sets are actually available every 10 years, so in between population projections are used. Population, and the second one is the population census with geotagging location. It's very useful for the mappings, especially if you want to identify the small areas mappings for humanitarian response. Village potency data, the last one is available to 2019. With the geotagging location, should be able to provide information, especially the infrastructure at the village level, which is very, very useful actually for the humanitarian response, especially if we want to estimate the damage caused by the disaster. National economic surveys like SUSENAS is also useful, especially for the preparedness stage. On the information, at the up to the district level, and BKKBN or National Population and Family Planning Board also regularly collect data through their family data, at the BKKBN. Next. This has been also mentioned by earlier speakers on the need of data for the national disaster-related statistics. Related to the risk, related to the disaster events and expenditure and impact. I don't have to, to elaborate more because it's been mentioned earlier. Next. Data preparedness as a pillar in emergency response. As we know, in the 3 stages of the disaster, one stage that we can do, that a lot is actually during the preparedness, and the data preparedness it can become a pillar in the humanitarian response. The data producers I mentioned earlier, yes, one is the BPS statistics. For those who would like to know, this is also their website address. They produce, like I mentioned earlier, population census, intercensual population census, village potency survey, population projections, household surveys, and districts in figures. I'd like to particularly mention the potential use of the districts in figures or daerah dalam angka here as the data for the preparedness stage. It is very useful because we have full information about the area. Before the disaster. So when the disaster occurred, at least we have the information of that particular area before the disasters. So it is going to be very useful for us in analyzing the damage caused by the disaster. But unfortunately, it is not ready to be used because it comes with different formats, even though almost all districts have this, because this is supported by the BPS statistics, but the responsibilities of producing this district in figures is actually lie, at the hand of the local government. because of the decentralization system, the format of the reporting is different. Even though the list of standard question has been provided by BPS, but the formatting in the database is not yet developed. The Population and Civil Registration Office or Ministry of Home Affairs, through their what you call website here, gis.dukcapil.kemendagri.go.id, you can access, and they have the data on the civil registration and vital statistics, which is very also useful when it comes to the the information to be used for analyzing the impact of the disaster. And of course, the Geospatial Information Agency, in this case, their website is big.go.id, provided base map or topography in the different scales from 250K to 10K. In all over Indonesia, they have 250K, but and down to 10K in major cities in the country. Next. Data for evidence-based emergency response. UNFPA actually facilitated the cooperation between National Disaster Management Agency or BNPB and BPS Statistik Indonesia, and the provision and utilization of data information of population, social, economic, culture, environment, and disaster statistics, starting in 2013 and followed by an extension up to 2023. This is the basic information that I can share it with you. Next. Next. This is an example of what UNFPA is a development partners of the Indonesian government and Indonesian society work in the area of disaster-related issues, data. One is to do the integration of 2010 population census data and 2011 village potential data into the Indonesian disaster data and information system hosted by the BNPB or National Development Management Agency. It has become the achievement of the collaboration between the two institutions, which is BNPB and BPS Statistics. This is actually the visualization of what data has been incorporated there. First, the data on population is non-disaggregated, but with with our support, the population census, which is rich in the information on population, including the segregation by age, by sex, and by region. Administrative areas could be incorporated into the disaster data and information system. Next. Other achievements that I'd like to share with you on the basis of our cooperation with the government of Indonesia and the Indonesian society. One is we've been able to develop knowledge, attitude, and practice survey in Kota Padang on the humanitarian response. This is done. It was done because there was some concerns about the response of the population in that particular area when it comes to a real what you call disaster, which is not in line with the preparedness or the preparation that they've done earlier. So we've conducted this survey. We also conducted national guideline on the use of population data for disaster management, which is maybe useful actually to be a reference on the use of population data. For the provision infographics using 2010 population census data and 2011 village potential data is also with the support of UNFPA published in 2014. But it's going to be updated again once the population the 2020 population census is available, and also the latest the village potential data. We also produce the use of computer-assisted personal interviewing, or CAPI, for data collection during disaster emergency response. It was produced in 2015. And the study of population exposed to natural hazards using population census 2010 data. It is easy to be applied, updated using the latest data, but this is just an example of using the 2010 population census. And we also have district infographics for 130 districts or cities that are priority in the medium-term development plans of the last one, 2015 and 2019. And if it is needed, then this could be also updated with the current data and the current medium-term development plan. Next. I'd like to share with you what UNFPA support on the Indonesia One Disaster data. The importance of One Disaster data has been mentioned by earlier speakers, by Pak Muhari, by Pak Ateng, and Ibu Weni, that we need to agree and together develop the Indonesia One Disaster data. But of course, because we have to overcome the challenges also in order to to materialize this initiative. Next. As the background, again, maybe this has been mentioned earlier. What would be the situation in Indonesia with regard to disaster-related data? That the data is quite fragmented, too much data with poor information. The second one is that the disaster and development are not directly connected. The BPS statistics, for instance, are actually have the mandates to produce the basic statistics related to address the issue of development in general. In this case, it's more on the long-term perspective, while the BNPB may be more on short-lived data related to the response to the disaster. How to provide links between the two are actually one of the challenges. And lack of the credibility, errors, discrepancy, and data conflict. This also occurred, in Indonesia, and that has been also mentioned by Ibu Winnie. And short seasonal data, disaster relief oriented, disaster emergency data. This is actually the data that once it is used, then it is no longer kind of be made as a reference. Next. So what would be the focus of UNFPA in the disaster issue? We have the mandates, in addition to population and development, also to address the issue of reproductive health and planning, the issue of gender equality and gender equality, the issue of youth and adolescent, and data and humanitarian in general. So this would be our focus, our UNFPA focus in working with the government of Indonesia and also with other partners in the area of disaster. Like, for instance, ensuring sexual reproductive health and also gender-based violence in the humanitarian context. Also capacity building to support affected population, working to ensure the needs of women and girls are served, and also data in humanitarian situation. In this case, UNFPA collaborates with the national statistical organizations like the BPS Statistics, BNPB, and other data producers. Next. What is in reality or in real in real what you call issue the support of UNEP to one disaster data. One is to provide technical support on the collaboration between again BNPB, BPS, and development of national framework and on Indonesia one disaster data. This will also include later with Bappenas, in Bappenas and FMS if it is needed. Secondly, support BNPB in the development of policy brief and lessons learned documentation on the Indonesian one disaster data, and support of the development of BNPB draft on regulation on Indonesia one disaster data with its technical guideline. This particular issue, especially the regulation, is very important as the legal framework before the one, Indonesia one disaster data could be implemented in the country. Next, I think that's about all. Oh yeah, what would be next in 2021? There are 5 kind of key issues that UNEP is working on. One is in the implementation of one disaster data. This would include, the piloting in the 3 provinces. Hopefully, this is the continuation of, our support on one disaster data, and development of the portal. Maybe the name could be decided later, but we need a common portal for this. Maybe hosted in the the NDMA with collaboration with the BPS Statistics. We also planning to support the study on the population exposed to natural hazards. In this case, we support BNPB in the study using the CRVS data, and we also support research on the COVID-19 impact on one of the particular vulnerable groups, which is older persons, because UNEP also pay attention on the issue of older persons. This is one of the research that we are planning to do in 2021 or 2022. We are collaborating with the BNPB, BKKBN, and the Economic Research Institute for ASEAN and East Asia or area. This is ongoing. Hopefully, we'll start soon. The strengthening, number 5 is the strengthening capacity of the BNPB in the disaggregated data collection through the training on the use of spatial-based data collection tools and visualization of disaster geospatial dashboard. These are actually the plan that we are going to do in 2021 and beyond. Thank you very much for listening. I welcome any response you may have on presentation. Thank you. Back to the moderator. Thank you, Pak Puji.
Thank you, Pak Richard. That was very interesting. And I think, ladies and gentlemen, you have the sense how these pieces are working together. The disaster management sector, the statistics sector, development planning, and development partners working together and building the momentum to disaster-related statistics in Indonesia. Considering the time, though, now it's already 11 o'clock. And there are still 550 participants in this symposium. I hope the speakers, you don't mind if I just forego the question and answer in favor of the remaining of the activities to be undertaken in this symposium. That being said, though, I would like to check with Mbak Hani from the organizing committee, at least give us some highlight of what are the questions that are passing through the slide. Mbak Hani, are you there?
Yeah, Pak Puji.
Yes, could you highlight 2 or 3 key questions that appears in the slide, please?
Okay. So there are many interesting questions from our participants via Slido, but there are some questions that have upvote, highest upvote. It's the first question is there any plan to engage and involve subnational level officials and academics in the implementation of the RSF in Indonesia. And on the other hand, disaster management sometimes challenged by local autonomy. How is One Indonesia disaster data integration could solve this condition?
Okay. Well, I guess I'll take the privilege to respond to that in the interest of time. That as it was conceptualized, the One Disaster Data Indonesia will involve both the ministries and agencies at national level, the sectoral level, and more importantly, at the local level. Under the framework of Indonesia One Data, local government offices are the data guardians. No, I'm sorry, the data producers, according to their own portfolio. And that will be being organized and consolidated at national level. Anyway, we'll take note of those questions and we'll pass it on to the speakers one way or another, by email most likely. Thank you, Mahani. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to quickly now shift to the second part of this session. Let me end first by thanking Pak Abdul Muhari from the National Disaster Management Agency, to Dr. Ateng Hartono from the Indonesia Statistics, Ibu Amalia from the National Development Planning Ministry and Agency, as well as Pak Richard Makaleo from UNFPA. Thank you very much for that contribution and guidance. And we wish that this really frame not only the discussion today, but the way forward. Ladies and gentlemen, excellencies, colleagues, I would like to shift quickly now to the special feature on Indonesia. The purpose of this session are two. One, to share with you where Indonesia now stands with regard to disaster statistics. And later, we will witness the official launching of the e-learning course on disaster statistics by the Statistical Institute of Asia Pacific. Now, without further ado, I would like to invite Ibu Harmawanti. She is the Director of the Social Resilience Division at the Indonesia Statistics, to share with us what is the status of disaster statistics in Indonesia, and particularly from the perspective of PPS. Now, Ibu Harmawanti, in addition of her being director, she's a dear friend to me. She is also the vice chair of the technical working group, right? And this should be an update of what Indonesia has presented both at the regional level and what Ibu Harmawanti has presented in New York a couple months back. So a lot of things are happening now. So I'm very excited to hear from Ibu Harmawanti what has been the development on One Disaster Data in Indonesia. Ladies and gentlemen, special feature on Indonesia statistics. Ibu Harmawanti, the screen is yours.
Okay, thank you very much, Pak Puji. Good morning and good afternoon for some of you. Ladies and gentlemen, excellency colleagues, thank you very much for the time given to me to present the progress of the SDBI Indonesia One Disaster Statistic. Next slide, please. Ladies and gentlemen, I don't want to talk about the importance of the one data related statistic, because most of all of the previous speakers already talk about it. So we know that because we have a lot of data, but little information that can be got from this data. And relies on those fact, actually in a multi-sectoral interaction has been done in Indonesia. There are several meetings between BPS, BNPB, and also other institutions, and also Bappenas. We are talk about the need of the importance of the one data related to disaster statistics. And also we have some project and some piloting in in some local area in province in Indonesia, and also for the global multi-level discussion. BPS also become one of the member of the technical working group on disaster statistics and UN ESCAP, and also in the international level, we also become the one of the international expert on disaster related statistics. We also have a discussion with the stakeholders such as UNFPA, UNICEF, UN Women, and other agencies. So many information, many experiences from other country and for other institution make us come with this framework. Next. Ladies and gentlemen, as when we talk about the one disaster data, it means we will have one portal or one place that we will have all the information, all the data, all the statistics related to the disaster. And of course, the statistics need to be in a one classification, one metadata, and also in can be interoperable each other. So I will see the framework that we try to develop. For the goal, I will talk from the end. There is a dashboard over there in my presentation. So we hope that we will have one collaboration portal or dashboard that will linkage the information, all the information related the disaster statistics. This portal will be collaborate among the information among the institution in Indonesia, not just from BPS, also or maybe BNPB, but all the institutions that have the data related to the disaster statistics. Because we know that the disaster statistic is not about the occurrence disaster, but also about the risk disaster, occurrence disaster, impact of disaster, and also the financing of disaster. And when we saw in the left hand, in my presentation, this is actually there are we try to set the data in a 4 variation. The first is basic statistic, the data source. Data source, there are basic statistic. It's mostly from BPS. It's related to the population census, Susenas, village potential census, and geotagging of the village, and also housing. And we also have the data related to the disaster registry that mainly produced by BNPB, such as database of BNPB, Inaris, DB, IRB, and such. And also there are another data from the local and sectoral. From the local, the BNPBD, also BDBD, the local BNPB, and also for the sectoral, for the institution in Indonesia, such as for the health ministry, they have the information related to the victim, or maybe for the housing, they have the information related to the housing. So, and also we also have the information from the big data that will give us the update information related to the disaster. All those information is on hand at the moment, but all the information cannot talk each other because they have the different sometimes they have the different classification, concept, and definition, and also they also have the different time of reference. Therefore, we think we need to have one standard, or we have to have one framework. So we use the disaster related statistic framework, the RSF, as the framework for all the information related to the disaster data in Indonesia. Therefore, nowadays BPS, we tried to mapping all the information, all information for the 4 sources of the data into the RSF. So we map the indicator that already produced by the production data in Indonesia into the DRSF. Why we use the DRSF? Because DRSF by now is the only one framework related for disaster statistics we have in by now. So we use the DRSF, and also because when we using the DRSF, we can also produce indicator that needed in the Sendai framework and also for the SDGs. Therefore, when we use the DRSF for our framework, so we can get the data that needed in the international standard and also in the national standard, and the data can be used all together using the concept and definition that was in the DRSF. Therefore, BPS try to map all the information that produced, all the data that produced by the producer into the RSF. After that, we will make metadata based on the RSF and also based on the data that we already have. So we will have the metadata for all the information for the disaster related statistics. And when we have the metadata, so and we use the standard using the RSF, and we hope that the regional disaster data that produced by local government also will use the metadata that will be produced in a national level. So this will be the information will be produced in a national level and also local level, and of course we need to have this discussion between BPS, BNPB, and also another sector and also the local government. And then hopefully when we already have one metadata and use the concept and definition based on the DRSF, so we will collect the data into the portal, into the dashboard, and we will put all together in a one portal. And this portal is not it's not a BPS portal, but this is collaboration. All the producer data will be put there on their data related to disaster in this portal. Of course, we will have a discussion first between BNPB, BPS, and other sectoral to decide it, to make conclusion or make a decision related to the concept and definition. And we will use the RSF as a standard data, as the guideline. So our data, our disaster data, Indonesian disaster data, also relevant to the international and global data. Actually, this is the plan, that the framework that BPS proposed. So hopefully all the stakeholders that produce the disaster data will have discussion with us, discussion with BPS as a National Statistic Office and also with BNPB. So we will sit together and we will discuss. We have agreement related to the concept and definition that related to the RSF. This is the big picture, the big framework that we want to propose, we want to do. And Indonesia, by now, BPS. Next, I will show the roadmap that we already made, that in 2020 we have some preparation in development guideline of Indonesia One Disaster Data. We have a book. It's produced by BNPB, BPS, and along with UNFPA and Pak Pujiono. And then in 2021, now we mapping the information, the data that produced by producer in Indonesia into the RSF. Hopefully in this year, we will finish with the discussion with the BNPB. For the next, we will have the meeting with BNPB and BPS, so we will make discussion related the data related to disaster statistic mapping into the RSF and make the metadata as well, and also collect the data. So, and in the start on 2022, hopefully we can launch the Indonesia One Disaster Data, consists of the data of BPS and BNPB first. After that, we will ask to another stakeholder, another sectoral, to go along with us, to sit along with us, to discuss about the data, to discuss about the metadata, and then put their own data, their data in the portal. Therefore, after that, we can have the portal, one portal data that consists of the information related to the statistic data, consists of the information from all the institution with the one metadata, one standard. We will refer to the RSF, and then we can fulfill the indicators that need in the Sendai framework and also for the SDGs. This is the roadmap that we plan to do in 2021 until 2024. And we hope that in 2024, the goal is achieved, so we can have the portal. And I think this project can be done by BPS itself or BNPB, but we need the collaboration for all stakeholders, or sectoral, and also for the development agency to help us to achieve the goals. Ladies and gentlemen, I will show some of the progress that we already made. We have already produced the book, the guidance of the one data related to disaster statistic of Indonesia. And then we also have the framework. I mean, it is more technical book, how to do it. The other one, the Satu Data Bencana Indonesia, the book Indonesia One Disaster Data is more broadly. It's related to the including for the governance and etc. But for the Kerangka Kerja SDBI framework, SDBI is a more technical book. We also produce the book of the metadata indicator. So this indicator will refer to the RSF. And by now we already mapping for the data, but we need to have a discussion with the sectoral. So then we will have a regular meeting with the sectoral to discuss, to have agreement related to the data that will be used in the portal. Then we also have the pilot for the dashboard for Indonesia One Disaster Data. So I will ask my friend colleagues to have a demo for this. Please. Mbak Suraya, please.
The SDBI dashboard is designed as a realistic manifestation of interoperability, which is one of the principles of One Data Indonesia. This dashboard's version is 0.1. Please note that this dashboard is still under development, so the features displayed still need improvement. The SDBI dashboard has 5 main menus: Home, Data, Dynamic Tables, Visualization, and Monitoring. The Home menu gives brief information such as what SDBI is, references, regulation, scope, and standard data use. The Data menu contains information on SDBI indicators that can be filtered by type of data, frequency of data collection, etc. Users can also search for indicators directly through the search feature. Let us use example of health. If we enter the keyword health, the indicators related to health will appear. In short, when the user selects an indicator, data related to the indicator will appear in the form of a table that has been equipped with metadata. This data can also be downloaded if needed. The Dynamic Table menu allows users to explore disaster-related indicator according to their needs. For example, if users want to know the number of natural disasters by region and types, then select Environment in the subject column, and then select Number of Natural Disaster Event in the Indicator column. Next, choose the available dataset and choose 2019 in the Period column. Click Save, then click Continue. Adjust the disaggregation level by click Change. And then click Save. The indicator table will appear after user click Show. The table layout can still be arranged. The Visualization menu allows users to visualize data according to their needs, whether in maps, tables, or graphs. Currently, the dashboard provides only a disaster risk menu. In the future, this menu will have 4 submenus, namely disaster risk, disaster events, disaster impacts, and financing. The disaster risk submenu can be accessed by click the scroll icon and select risk. In the submenu, users can see the distribution of areas that have experienced disasters for 3 consecutive years. Let's use flooding as the example. Click the burger button on the left corner. Choose the type of aggregation. Choose flood on the disaster type. Select all on the province. Choose number of health facilities. Then user can choose the type of visualization. It can be table, graph, or map. The monitoring menu allows user to view a list of disaster indicators by standard data use. That's a short demo of the SDBI dashboard. We still improve the dashboard so that the dashboard meets the main purpose as a home for all disaster-related data in Indonesia. Thank you.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the development, the progress that we already done. But we realized that our work is a long way to go. But we optimistic that with the collaboration with all among all of the sector in Indonesia that produce the related data statistic, we can get the goal, we achieve the goal, and we can have the one data related to disaster statistic in Indonesia for sure. I think this is all my conclude, Pak Puji. Thank you. I pass to you again.
Everyone, thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, I think you share with me the excitement that the progress has been made in Indonesia. I think on the part of the Indonesia Statistics, they have taken a bold move by creating a task force internal to the Indonesia Statistics and taking charge of this developing all the data infrastructure. Congratulations for that. And we truly hope that and not too long from now, this will become reality. Thank you, Ibu Wanti. And ladies and gentlemen, now we come to the most exciting part of the morning session. We are terribly behind time, but I think all the speeches were worth it. Now, we come to the launching of the e-learning course in Bahasa Indonesia. And for that, there are 3 small items we will present today. We will have an introductory remark from the my friend so-called Fako from Statistical Institute of Asia Pacific from SIAP. After that, we have a video presentation, very short one, and then after that, we have a short remark from the counterpart from Syakwala University, Dr. Saiful Mahdi. So can I now invite Sokol to share with 550 audience in this platform. What's the good news, Sokol? Over to you.
Thank you, Puji, and good morning, good afternoon, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen. As Puji mentioned, we here at the Statistical Institute for Asia and the Pacific are very excited to be launching in collaborations with many partners this online course specifically designed for Indonesia. It is a course that will run over the next 6 weeks or so. And we are very keen to bring DRSF to the local level. And we are trying to meet some of the demands that were articulated in particular from our colleagues in the first segment on the needs for having integrated data and the needs for having a common language across institutions. So I have a very brief presentation. I know we are running, as Puji mentioned, rather, behind on schedule. So very briefly, I just wanted to say what we are trying to accomplish. So I'll share my screen here quickly just to show a very, very brief presentation for this. But I would like to encourage everybody that is here and is interested in taking this course and learning more about DRSF to reach out to us and sign up for the course so that you can also participate in the course. So I hope you can see my presentation, and hopefully it'll go full screen here in a second. Very good. So again, you have heard these topics. There is a need for comprehensive data related to disasters because it is a cross-cutting topic across social, economic, and the environmental space. In the economic space, we do have the system of national accounts, which provides us with a statistical foundation for compiling economic data. On the environmental space, we have the system of environmental economic accounts who does that and provides a statistical framework and guidance for that. And the disaster space, we have the disaster-related statistical framework, which is the standard or the main framework here in our region. And as you heard from my colleague Rika earlier today, now there is work to elevate this to a global standard for the compilation of disaster-related statistics. There is a need for vertical and horizontal integration. I will not dwell too much on this. You heard it from the colleagues here. There are many institutions involved, many disciplines that are involved in the area of disaster-related statistics. So we need to have that horizontal integration, but also vertical in the sense of disaggregated data from local to national and then obviously global. There is a need for to be compiled with national context in mind. So this is very much something that we drive through in this training. Now, the training is one component. There is very much other activities that you just heard from our colleague from the statistics office, 2 seconds ago, about the many activities that they are undertaking in this space. What are the objectives for our training is to be informed. So what are the relevant policy initiatives at the national and international level, including the Sendai framework and SDGs? We need to understand the concepts around disaster statistics. So this is what the training tries to accomplish. The training also tries to teach about the harmonized data and integration of different data sources to support policy development. And then last but not least, we want participants to comprehend that data is relevant for different components of the disaster risk cycle and the management of that. So it's comprehensive, it's an introduction course, so it is not, you know, a one-off, but it is very much a foundation for the compilation of disaster statistics in countries. The approach to training is 2 core activities. We have some self-paced modules, and there will be webinars. This is the first webinar as part of that training. It is complementary, these activities are complementary rather, and are based on country context. All of the activities will be done in Bahasa Indonesian, so this will make it more accessible to colleagues throughout government and outside of government and all the various actors in the space of disaster-related statistics. And the last point is very important here is that national ownership is very keen and very important rather, and driven by country needs is what we are aiming for. And this is, Indonesia is a great example of this. We already have great national ownership, as you have seen today, and country needs are driving this. Products for Indonesia to support the development of disaster-related statistics at the national level. We wouldn't be able to be where we are with the training if we were not able to cooperate with players in the government, and you see there the forum has been a driver in this, and Puji in particular, I must say, has been one of the strong pillars in moving this forward. Colleagues in the statistics office at Bappenas also very key to have broad and sustained uptake of disaster-related statistics. We're very excited to be working with colleagues from the universities of, and I'll probably not pronounce this correctly, so you'll have to apologize, of SIAP, who are supporting, and we're doing this training jointly to again increase the uptake. And then Puji and the center that he leads also are a key driver in all of this. I also wanted to mention that this is again one component of the broader activities that are going on. So you know, this will be one item in a great toolkit available to colleagues in Indonesia, whether it's within government, whether it's in academia, international partners, private sectors, research institutions, you name it. This is a joint effort to get this done. So the sustainability of this is also an important component. This is not a one-off sort of exercise. We very much will have this available in the long term, and those who are interested to learn more about disaster-related statistics can also take this course in the future at their own pace to learn it and understand the topic a little bit better. So this is my last slide here. Indonesia, again, is the first pilot country to implement the national level training. We did run this at the regional and global level before, so we do have some experience already at that level, but now we are trying to localize this to make it even more relevant at the country level. As I mentioned, the resources will be available long term. So the course, while we are running a facilitated training for the next 6 weeks or so, there will be more facilitated trainings in the future. And you know, you don't have to participate necessarily in the facilitated training. You can read the material at your own pace as you become interested. As has been mentioned, this is a regional symposium. So I know we have colleagues from not only Indonesia joining us today, but other countries as well. And I would like to encourage other countries who are interested in this topic and who would like to have, in particular, colleagues in line ministries and other institutions to reach out to us so that we can see how we can localize the training for meeting your needs. But let me just quickly recap and again express my great appreciation to my colleagues in Indonesia throughout government and the academic sector for their support in all of this. We wouldn't be here without you. And encourage any of you who are interested, maybe we can share, Puji, the link to the registration through the chat box. Colleagues who might be interested in taking the course. We just started today. Well, we started yesterday, but today is the big launch, and we're very keen to have as many of you join us for the course. So thank you again, everybody, and I look forward to seeing many of you over the next 6 weeks in the course, and then continuing that collaboration longer term to build capacity for the compilation of disaster-related statistics in Indonesia. Puji, over to you.
Thank you, Sokol. So can you confirm with me that the registration is still open?
Yes, we will accept registrations, I think, through the end of the day today for sure.
Okay.
So just to allow people, because I know this is the big launch event, that people might have had questions or concerns. So I think we're happy to have those who are interested join us. So if colleagues can share the link to the chat, that'd be great, so that people can register and join us for the course.
All right. Can you tell us how many people have registered for the course?
So last I checked, about half an hour ago, we had over 250 people that have already signed up. So we are
enrolled,
very
right?
good shape. I'm sorry?
How many registered and how many enrolled?
Enrolled, yes, 250 enrolled, yes. It's a two-step process. So you register and then you enroll. I think the registration, we have a few more people, so it's good. But people can still register, hopefully to do it today if you have some time.
Okay. All right, so colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, shortly, Sokol will put the registration link to the chat box until the end of today, meaning until midnight today. You can still register. You're still welcome to join. The course will be in Bahasa Indonesia. Now, Sokol, thank you very much for that. Being a person who is involved in the thinking at the beginning, at the formation of that training, adaptation to the Indonesian context, I'm very, very excited. This is one of my babies, definitely, right? Now, colleagues, it comes to a very exciting part. I would like to request the organizing committee now to share the video to mark the official launching of the disaster-related statistics.
Kondisi di kawasan Balirante pemirsa.
Ladies and gentlemen, that was it. The official launching of the e-learning course on disaster statistics. Let's give them a round of applause and welcome to the baby. And for those who already registered, 250 of you, welcome. And teman-teman, if you have not registered yet, use your time now until midnight to register. You will have to request one person, your supervisor, or your lecturer, to be the proctor, to be the supervisor to your lesson, to make sure that you take the final test with all the honesty, with all the credentials. So welcome. Now, on that note, I would like to invite Dr. Saiful Mahdi. He is from the Department of Statistics of Syekh Kuala, who will become the host of the training, not only for now, but hopefully from here onward. And his department will also be the focal point for the e-learning course from here onward. Dr. Saiful, please.
Thank you, Pak Puji. I think because we are running out of time, I will be very brief just to thank everyone, all the stakeholders, the BPS, of course, the BNPB, the Bappenas, and of course, ESCAP through its technical working group, where I'm part of one of the members. It's a privilege and it's really a honor for us at the Department of Statistics at Syekh Kuala University, Universitas Syekh Kuala, together with our TDMRC Tsunami and Disaster Research Mitigation Center and ICAIOS, the International Center for Indian Ocean, for Aceh and Indian Ocean Studies, will co-host this e-learning course together, and we hope that many more will register. I think so far we have more than 500 registration, although half of it already enrolled. So like our friend said, Sokol said, you need to register and then enroll in the course. Not only registration, you have to do that two-stage. So yeah, on behalf of our Department of Statistics at Universitas Syekh Kuala and ICAIOS and TDMRC, we are privileged and we are happy to co-host this and hope that will benefit many more stakeholders, especially students also, and academics in terms of the research, and for the student, the possibility of transferring the credit through this, our government Merdeka Belajar Kampus Merdeka. So thank you, Pak Puji, and everyone.
Thank you, Pak Saiful. That was a perfect launching. We have the introduction from SIAP. We have the video presentation, and we have the welcoming remark from Dr. Saiful. So now the course is officially open. Colleagues, please register. Please tell your other friends to join in. And after September, we'll think again. Maybe in December, we run another round. So thank you, everyone. With that, I would like now to end this session. And I would like now pass on the screen to Mbak Fafa to take us forward. But just be reminded that at the end of today's symposium, you will be required to fill up some evaluation form as a feedback, and you will receive certificate as well as the link to all of the materials that was presented today. So hold on tight and stay until the end. Mbak Fafa, over to you. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. I sign off.
Thank you so much for Pak Puji that already moderated 2 sessions in a row. The first is policy segment, and then the special feature on Indonesia One disaster data, and also the launching of the e-learning. Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, and now moving on the next agenda moderated by Miss Virginia Batan, and there will be 2 speakers in this session. To Miss Virginia, time is yours.
Thank you, Ms. Tiffany. Good morning, good afternoon, and thank you for the introduction. It's a privilege to be your moderator for today's forum. Welcome to the session on Forward Momentum. This session will feature 2 presenters. One will discuss the global level, its efforts towards international agreed standards on disaster statistics. And at the regional level, we have the regional collaboration to support country-level disaster initiatives. And after the presentations, we would like to ask if the committee would have time to present at least 1 questions using the slide note provided by the FMS for questions and comments. And to begin with, let me introduce to you the first speaker. Our first presenter is Dr. Animesh Kumar, head of the UNDRR office in Bonn and co-chair of interagency and expert group on disaster-related statistics. Dr. Kumar will present global efforts towards internationally agreed on disaster statistics. The presentation will be discussing the overview of the global disaster and climate governance, the monitoring of the Sendai framework and its implementation, the related SDGs, the challenges and common understanding of the disaster-related statistics, its progress and benefits, and the outcomes of the first interagency expert group meeting and some ways forward. Let us welcome a warm welcome to Dr. Kumar. Over to you, sir.
Thanks a lot, Ms. Moderator, and greetings to everyone from very early morning Bonn in Germany. As I was introduced, I am the head of office in UNDRR, in the UN Office for Disaster Risk Reduction, and my office serves as the global facility of the organization on disaster-related data, monitoring, statistics, and so on. So in my presentation, which I hope the organizers will put on the screen very soon, I will try to provide some global perspectives on disaster-related statistics for the topic under discussion. And I hope that it will build on the things that we have discussed so far since morning. And it has been very early morning for me, but I have been attending at least the last 2 sessions, and I have been I find it very exciting. Considering the fact that I have served in Asia Pacific region, just till the months back, I was in Bangkok as the deputy head for the Asia Pacific region. I still very much relate to some of the challenges and opportunities that are being presented. So let's move on the slides. Next slide, please. So just to give a brief overview of how we have reached where we are as of now, let's look back at the last 3 decades of disaster risk reduction and complementary processes. We will see that people would know, starting from the Yokohama Declaration towards the Hyogo framework, leading to the Sendai framework, and so on. While our focus of disaster risk reduction has shifted, we have now focused more and more on risk-informed development rather than only focusing on emergency response, which also means that the data requirement has also changed. So while we were earlier focusing on data largely required for emergency response and preparedness, now we tend to focus more on integrating risk into developmental processes. And this has been further facilitated by the adoption of a series of international frameworks and agreements in 2015, which we aptly call as the Year of Resilience, including the SDGs and the Paris Agreement. So this big data revolution has called for the need of ensuring that we speak the same language, we understand each other, because even if we mean the same thing, but we speak a different language, we might end up analyzing and hence taking wrong decisions. So let's move to the next slides, please. So one of the key achievements of the Sendai framework was the quantification of the monitoring data. People would know and remember that during the Hyogo framework for action era, we used to monitor DRR progress, but more from a very qualitative point of view. Now we have very quantified 7 targets and 38 indicators, which were all developed through an intergovernmental process by the open-ended intergovernmental expert working group. And those were the recommendations were all endorsed by the UN General Assembly in 2017. And following which we had also done some analytical work and guidance, including the technical guidance notes, which are being used by all the governments as of now. And finally, the online Sendai Framework Monitor was launched in 2018. As of now, around 153 member states are using member states and observer states are using the Sendai Framework Monitor, but of course at different levels of reporting. I'll come to that. Next slide, please. One of the key achievements, apart from having the Sendai Framework Monitor, was also to use this opportunity of a series of international frameworks, in particular the 2030 Agenda and the Sendai Framework to be adopted in the same year, to ensure that we talk about coherence, in particular coherence in monitoring. And hence, 5 of the first 5 targets of the Sendai framework, the A, B, C, D, and E, are aligned with selected indicators and targets of SDGs, in particular 1, 11, and 13. This ensures that we talk about the same level of reporting when it comes to development and disaster risk reduction, but also ensure that at the national level, there is a kind of need for coordination between the national statistical offices and the disaster risk reduction offices for effective reporting. Next slide, please. So the key challenge that we have faced in terms of moving towards this new opportunity of disaster-related statistics is that while we have ensured that we have taken some rapid strides towards data collection, often the comparison of data across countries has become a challenge. We should remember that all the targets and indicators that we are talking about, whether for Sendai framework or other international frameworks, are largely at the global level. And we need to ensure that the countries, when they report, while they follow the national processes, there has to be a certain level of comparability and parity across the data. Otherwise, we will not be able to analyze the data at the global level. Even within the national level, and as I was noticing in some of the presentations, we have seen that different subnational level authorities may end up using different definitions for the same indicator, hence end up not analyzing the same thing. So this interoperability, not only for data, but also across data platforms, is also a challenge in terms of analyzing the data very coherently. Hence, a need for a common disaster-related statistics framework has been felt to have a common understanding of disaster-related statistics. It's very important because it ensures a required level of rigor in disaster data and its analysis to have risk-informed development. Importantly, we're trying to move increasingly towards the national statistical systems and offices. As of now, around 50 plus countries in the world have given some role on Sendai framework monitoring to the national statistical offices. And we want that the higher engagement should be feasible as we move forward. We also ensure that through this, that the countries need to introspect in terms of the kind of data gaps that they face in analyzing and assessing and monitoring their progress in disaster risk reduction, and hence ensure that they understand the same thing in terms of using a common yardstick, which is a kind of a framework that we are talking about. And finally, as I mentioned, that we need to compare data across regions, and a common framework for disaster-related statistics ensures a comprehensive monitoring for the Sendai framework as well as SDGs. Next slide, please. So let me quickly give a brief overview of what we have done so far in terms of ensuring we have a common understanding of disaster-related statistics. So I already mentioned that the recommendations of the open-ended intergovernmental expert working group was endorsed by the UN General Assembly. But while endorsing, the committee also recommended strong coordination with the national statistical systems and offices within the common framework of official statistics. Subsequently, in 2018, the UN Statistical Commission welcomed this greater focus on disaster-related statistics, and soon after, the next year, requested a series of all the 5 regional economic commissions with the UN Statistical Division and us, UNDRR, to establish a mechanism to develop a common framework on disaster-related statistics. Next year, and the interagency and expert working group was established, and its terms of reference has already been approved by the Bureau of UN Statistical Commission. Now, this IAEG is currently co-chaired by ESCAP and UNDRR, while UNDRR also manages the secretariat. I'm very happy to inform that within a very short duration, at least 90 member states and other expert institutions have already provided the nomination for the membership of this working group. And the primary objective of this working group is to establish and advance a common statistical framework building on existing regional frameworks like the one existing in Asia Pacific, developed and coordinated by ESCAP. So let me talk about the first meeting of the IAEG. Next slide, please. So the common objective of the IAEG is to provide a common evidence base for risk-informed development, enhance collaboration between NDMOs and NSOs, enhance monitoring and reporting on SDGs and Sendai framework, but also provide a common basis for statistics going into disaster loss accounting. That's another topic, but very pleased to inform that with 25 years of existence, we are now kind of overhauling Disinventar to establish a new database, which should be in place very soon. Currently, Disinventar is being used by more than 120 countries, and we want to ensure that they have a common standard for analysis. Next slide, please. So very quickly, the first meeting of the IAG happened exactly 2 months back. The common statistical framework on disaster-related statistics was the key discussion point. And not only in terms of the members considered the comprehensiveness and high quality of data required for the monitoring system, but also considered the type of statistics, the nature of disasters, and other data requirements that will feed into risk-informed development planning. I would like to point that the effort of the IAG and the efforts going on in the disaster-related statistics is not to generate new data or influence the existing indicators, but to provide a level of robustness and statistical quality in the existing monitoring data which is being collected. Some of the key topics that were also pointed out for further research included environmental and economic losses, data disaggregation, something which was also pointed out earlier, building on the hazard classification that we have already released, partnering with the International Science Council, and also integrated approaches for different vulnerable groups. Next slide, please. Subsequently, after the first meeting of the interagency expert group, the first expert forum of producers and users of disaster-related statistics was hosted by the Economic Commission for Europe last month. It considered the different roles of IAEG, which I've already elaborated, but more importantly, developed the internationally agreed statistics and quality assurance frameworks. Some of the key points that were discussed, which I would also hope that in the breakout sessions, people would also bring some of these points, is in terms of enhancing the trust in official statistics. And there is always a trade-off between data requirement, data availability, and the level of formalization of that data. And there is always a trade-off because data collection needs to be very quick, in particular cases for emergency response. But sometimes the official statistics is not a quick process, it's a slow process because we're talking about standardization of data. And there is often a trade-off between the two, and that trade-off needs to be ensured. This is in particular important because the sources of data that we're using is increasingly diversified. We're no more relying only on official data released by the governments, but also on social media, big data, crowdsourcing, and so on. How do we ensure that the official statistics mechanisms align with the big data revolution that is coming up? And how do we ensure that the two come together? Existing statistics we have a lot of data, but the data itself needs to be used and analyzed to inform decisions. We need to have the right protocol in place for data sharing, in particular for emergency situations, including for geospatial purposes. It was also discussed that while we talk about disaster statistics more in context of technical terms and statistics terms, the communication aspect of it is very important, including through interactive maps. Sorry, I was muted. And highlighting specific thematic areas of statistics such as climate and health. So next slide, please. And that will be, I believe, my last slide. So moving forward, the effort is now to have a common statistical framework at the global level. For that, we would need to finalize the research agenda. We are in the process of developing a technical drafting team. We will also hire a technical advisor to coordinate this process and develop a series of issue papers on the identified topics to inform the common statistical framework. We will also make efforts to ensure that the UNDRR ISC has a classification and other sectoral data that is coming up is linked with disaster-related statistics. A very common area of work which needs further investment is to enhance the partnership between the national statistical offices and the NDMOs at the national level, while at the global level, we as international organizations would continue to provide platforms for sharing of data and providing geospatial environment. So with this, I would end my presentation, and thanks a lot for your time.
So thank you, Dr. Kumar. So on behalf of Ms. Basiti Soko, our second presenter is Ms. Maria Talento, statistician, economic and environment sector in charge of the disaster-related statistics and currently serve as Secretariat of the Technical Working Group on Disaster Statistics of the ESCAP. Ms. Maria will present the regional collaboration to support the country-level initiatives on disaster statistics, its background, the ESCAP support, as well as its officials and membership. And this also includes the overview of the 5-year strategic plan and how countries can best utilize the TWG to initiate the disaster-related statistics. Ladies and gentlemen, let us welcome Ms. Maria. Over to you, Ms. Maria. Thank you very much, Virginia. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Maria Talento, and I will be presenting on behalf of the TWG Vice Chair, who is not available to join us today. Can you put up the slides for me, please? So let's just wait while the presentation is loading. Okay, I think we can start with slide 3 because Virginia has already introduced the timelines, please. Okay, so let's backtrack a bit on the milestones and the time frame leading to get the TWG running and operational. So it was in May 2014 that the expert group was established to develop the DRSF, and the work was completed in April 2018. The following month, the Statistical Commission of the UNSD requested the Committee on Statistics and the Committee on Disaster Risk Reduction to review the DRSF in their next committee meetings. In October 2019, the Committee on Statistics endorsed the DRSF and supported the recommendation of the expert group to form the TWG. In April 2019, the Bureau of the Committee on Statistics approved the TOR of the TWG. So by August 2019, the Committee on Disaster Risk Reduction noted the work of the expert group on the DRSF. So after months of preparation, in September 2020, the call for nomination to the TWG membership was announced by ESCAP. And the following month, on October 28, the organizational meeting of the TWG was held. And since then, the TWG has been conducting monthly meetings up to the present. Next slide, please. ESCAP also provides both regional and global support to disaster-related statistics. With the DRSF already developed, the next task is to help countries start producing disaster-related statistics using this framework through the TWG. So based on the TOR, the TWG will serve as a platform for sharing country experiences, maintain a pool of experts to provide technical support, and develop training materials, among others. ESCAP serves as the secretariat of the TWG, like coordinating and facilitating the monthly meetings. It also established an electronic platform called the Confluence for it to function as a community of practice rather than being a formal type of group. Other support is in terms of preparing regional and country studies to make sure that the priority of the TWG matches with the members' identified challenges and priorities. And training support is also provided through various modalities, and opportunities are also available for technical assistance. It's also made sure that the work of the TWG is linked with global groups. ESCAP is currently co-chair with the UNDRR of the Interagency and Expert Group, and is also a member of the Task Force on Hazardous Events and Disaster led by UNECE. Next slide, please. With regards to officials and members, we have the current chair, Mrs. Aryuna Chadrabal of Mongolia, and there are two vice chairs, Ms. Soko of Fiji and Ms. Harmawanti of Indonesia. It has 87 registered members coming from 32 countries, mostly coming from Asia and the Pacific. 54 or 66% of them come from the NSOs and NDMAs, and 33% of them come from UN, international agencies, and other organizations. SIAP, UNDRR, UN Women, and APDIM are the TWG's development partners who serve as drivers and catalysts of the group. Next slide, please. On the methods of work, the TWG meetings are conducted monthly. And as per the TOR of the group, a 5-year strategic plan should be formulated, and this is for the year 2021 to 2025. So with regards to the activities leading to the formulation of the plan, we have the regular sharing of country experiences as a regular agenda of meetings. And then later, a questionnaire was developed by the Secretariat to conduct a survey and prepare a situation analysis in the region with regards to the status of production and use of disaster-related statistics. So the results of the survey, and based on discussions of the group, provided the basis for the draft strategic plan. Later on, a workshop was conducted to review the plan, solicit the members' inputs, and to finalize and adopt the plan. Next slide, please. So regarding the survey that was conducted for the members of the TWG, the survey questionnaire covered 4 major areas, and countries were evaluated based in terms of its degree of implementation, with a grade of 1 being the lowest and 4 being the highest. So the 4 areas here are if policies on disaster exist in the country. The second one is this coordination mechanisms are in place. The third one, if data is shared among agencies and stakeholders. And number 4, if disaster data is being used as basis for policy making, plans, and programs. Next slide, please. So based on the survey results coming from 17 members and 11 countries who responded to the survey, as you can see in the graph, the 4 major areas of concern are reflected side by side along each other to show an overall status of the country. So results show that in terms of countries, Indonesia is leading in all four areas, followed by Thailand, Philippines, and Bangladesh. So if we look closely at Thailand, for example, among the 4 areas, data sharing mechanisms need to be improved. So for the Philippines, on the other hand, needs improvement in the area of data utilization. So the graph clearly tells us in which areas the different countries show strength and which areas need support and strengthening. So the results, however, of this survey does not fully represent the situation in the region, and it's not meant to compare countries in terms of its development, but only to have information captured provided by the members of the TWG. Next slide, please. So with this, For the regional analysis report that the Secretariat has prepared, only selected countries were included in the report, taking into account the regional balance and spread across Asia and the Pacific. The countries included in this report are Bangladesh, Georgia, Bhutan, Indonesia, Fiji, and Sri Lanka. And the number of countries are limited to enable a more in-depth analysis of the countries. Next slide, please. Now, with regards to the 5-year strategic plan, so taking into account the TOR, the discussion among members during the meetings, the conduct of the survey, and having more in-depth discussion with some countries, we have put together the 5-year strategic plan of what is felt is required to support countries to establish disaster-related statistics in the next 5 years. So as you can see here in the slide, the first column in circles represents the current status of the 3 main areas of concern, which are namely first, strengthening technical capacity of members. Second, regional participation in the development of internationally agreed standards. And the last one being to improve disaster statistics governance. The succeeding columns, which represents the individual years from 2021 to 2025, have details, show us the targets to be accomplished for that particular year. So for 2021, for example, the target is to identify what the current situation is among members of the TWG, and work priorities will be focused on needs assessment and exploring solution strategies. The last column, also in circles, represents the ideal situation in the 3 main areas of concern after 5 years. Next slide, please. So how can countries optimize the use of the TWG? First of all, the TWG was primarily established with the main objective of supporting and helping countries to initiate the production of disaster-related statistics in their countries. The TWG is also tasked to raise the members' awareness on their accountability and commitment to regional and global frameworks, and are informed on the latest GIS tools and technologies available. The country sharing of experiences during the meetings generate discussions and awareness of each other's strengths and challenges. And in this way, countries can learn from each other. Among also the functions of the TWG is to help build capacity of countries on the DRSF. And SIAP is the TWG's major partner. And among the trainings available are the e-learning on the DRSF, the conduct of national workshops as follow-through to countries that have availed of the e-learning. And the TWG is also embarking on customized e-learning modules in the future, depending on the needs and priorities of countries. Next slide. To continue, the members of the TWG were selected based on their individual expertise on disaster-related statistics. So everyone is in fact a resource person and an expert in the field. The TWG can also provide opportunities for technical assistance on the implementation of the DRSF, but the data are mainly country-driven or demand-driven, and also dependent upon ESCAP's availability of resources and identify the priority countries. The Regional Situation Analysis Report is one of the 2 important materials that the TWG Secretariat prepared for the perusal of the members to assist them in their pursuit of producing disaster-related statistics. And finally, we have the country case. Next slide, please. And finally, we have the country case study of Indonesia. The report is entitled One Disaster Data that can serve as a model of good practices at the national level that other countries can follow or adopt. So it is catered to all relevant stakeholders involved in disaster-related statistics, and the report is based on the first-hand experiences of Indonesia. So that, next slide, please. So that ends my presentation, and thank you very much for your kind attention. Over to you, to the moderator, Virginia. Thank you very much for that very informative presentation, Ms. Maria. At this juncture, the presentations provided us the important milestones of the disaster-related statistics at the global and regional level. So we would like to ask the committee if there are questions from the participants.
There are a few questions from the participants.
So can we have at least one question for the benefit of, for the interest of time?
Okay, the first question is, when aiding survivors during during, post-disaster inclusive data like sex, age, disability, disaggregated are needed to specifically provide needs to people at risk. However, this inclusive data collection has not been implemented by parties or stakeholders. How to overcome this gap? That's the question.
So maybe ask the two presenters if they have answers to the questions. Well, I think I should answer that very briefly. And I think the sex disaggregation data with regards to disaster-related statistics is really one of the challenges that are being faced not only by Indonesia, but for all countries all over the world. No? But I think it also boils down to the priorities of the country. And I think the countries, especially with regards to the NSO, who is the coordinator of the NSS, to have this very important disaggregation included in the various surveys or in the population census, for example, because other countries have already initiated such activities that when there is a population census, they provide like a rider questionnaire on disaster-related statistics to be able to capture this very important data that is very much relevant to disaster-related data, to the disaster-related statistics. So I think it depends on the priorities also of the country. So yeah, I think that's one of my that's the way I can answer that, and it's a very common question. So that is still considered as a major challenge in terms of collecting data. Okay, thank you, Ms. Maria. So in the interest of time, I think we hope that we continuously support and participate the global and regional endeavor of the disaster-related statistics. And this concludes our sessions on the way forward, momentum. Again, this is Virginia from the Philippine Statistics Authority. Maraming salamat. Terima kasih. Back to you, Ms. Tiffany.
Thank you so much for Miss Virginia Batan. Like we know before, the Miss Virginia Batan is Chief Statistical Specialist for Philippines. So, ladies and gentlemen, after this, we will have a break session. And after the break session, there will be 2 parallel segments, and audience are requested to choose one of the segments. And the organizing committee will do its best to accommodate participants. In the bottom side, the right bottom side, there are a choice of breakout rooms. So after this, there will be 2 rooms. First room is about the country level experience sharings, moderated by Miss Maria Talento. And the other room is academic segment, will be moderated by Miss Sri Astuti Tamrin. And just reminder to all participants, at the end of this session, there will be an evaluation form, and we hope that every participant can fill this, and also the certificate. So please stay until the end of the meeting, and the organizing committee will announce further in the chat room. Ladies and gentlemen, that's all about our first event today, and we will begin again at 1 p.m. Jakarta time. Thank you very much for your participation in this event. Good afternoon. Wassalamualaikum.
Udah lama kan? Kereta.
Lancangku